where the political party is just beginning. Welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
To the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Thank God it's Friday, Dom, and this time I mean that with all sincerity.
Happy frickin' Friday, Crudy. Always a pleasure, my dear friend. Hey,
Happy frickin' Friday.
you know, we weren't live yesterday, and I heard there was like an impeachment or something going on. You hear anything about that?
Well, just sort of a vote, if you will, Dom. I did watch that. I did watch hours of the pre-vote testimony, and I found much of it sort of alternately, tragic and quite humiliating for a few of the Republicans that felt the need to, support this president.
It's a theater of pain, man.
It was ugly, Dom. And how do we know it's going to be worse? Well, some polling. But before we get to all that, we got some fine guests joining us on this show. At least one for surezies.
For sure, he's working hard today on a Friday.
Jim Doyle. And not that Jim Doyle, not the immediate Jim Doyle that comes to mind. The former governor of the state of Wisconsin is not our guest at the bottom of this hour.
Not that guy.
This Jim Doyle is the president of the Business Forward Foundation, and he's going to help us make the business case against Donald Trump.
Ooh, excellent. I cannot wait.
There's some new Midwestern data out, and Jim's going to share it with our fair audience today, Dom.
Excellent. We have some good timing as well for Jim Doyle to come on. Obviously, we have some jobs numbers out as well.
Do you think when Scott Walker always hearkened to Jim Doyle's recession, do you think he meant this Jim Doyle?
No, he meant the other Jim Doyle.
Dominic, also, Crazy Lenny's supposed to come back around this afternoon. And let me say, I've been proud of the audience.
Yeah?
The audience supporting our sponsors. I love our audience when they support our sponsors. And when you sell e-bikes for a living and it gets a little treacherous out there, well, you got to be a little creative, innovative. So Lenny's been laying away bikes for April. He's got a hell of a deal for all the people. And apparently our fair audience has responded. He's had lots of inquiries and seemingly a handful of sales that have him quite encouraged.
Well done.
So Lenny wants to come back and talk more politics and e-bikes. And we'll see if he honors his call. He hasn't confirmed yet, but supposed to be around in the happy hour. You know, Lenny, he'll show up.
He loves to talk on the radio.
Roughly at 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock-ish.
Dominic wanted to lead today with a piece by Jennifer Rubin. I got some personal notes today as well. And I know you never get personal on the radio, or very seldom.
Oh, occasionally I do.
You're a private man, Salvia.
Well, it's relative.
You're a vault.
Not really.
Me, I'm really unfiltered over
I just
here.
can't say and do the things on the radio. The FCC won't let me be me, Crudy.
That's a sad thing. Last night, I'm gonna tease this one for later. Last night, I get reached out to, last couple days, someone on Facebook reached out to me and had not generally made a habit of accepting Facebook asks from people who don't have at least, a million mutual friends with me.
Right.
I'm very popular.
People know
quite
you.
frankly, because if you don't have at least, let's say, 5, 10, a dozen mutual friends, you're probably a Trump supporter. And I don't really care what's going on in your stream because Facebook, for me, all in all, is not really a family thing. I'm not putting up photos of the kids or the grandkids at this point. I know lots of people do. You have cute kids and grandkids. I just don't choose to put mine on Facebook. Facebook for us is more of a work thing. So when people, like me or encourage me to be their friends, if you got some mutual friends, I'll probably say yes.
But generally speaking, we use Facebook, and I'm with you there, Kurt. I don't post a lot on my personal page, but yeah, we interact with Facebook on the Devil's Advocates Facebook page primarily, and the radio station pages as well.
Yeah, that's what we do.
You want to know what we're thinking? That's where you go look.
Just ask us.
We'll tell you.
So anyways, this guy asked me to be his friend, and the name seemed familiar, and I'm like, okay, just spur of the moment. I said, yes, no mutual friends. Guy doesn't even live near me. lives in Denver, Colorado.
It's always good to have friends in Denver.
Yeah, I figure at least I got a couch to crash on if I get a little too wasted one night. So anyways, made friends with this guy on Facebook. He reached out and he said, have you looked at Ancestry.com? And my wife and son had bought me a thing. And he said, look really close at these relations to you. And there's always been a great life mystery for me, Dom. And it got more mysterious in the last couple of years. I never knew my father, and I've told you that. The story I got was that my mom and dad got divorced roughly when she was pregnant with me, and she threw an ashtray at my dad, and he took the boat and the bank account, and they parted ways, very acrimoniously. And anyways, never knew the dad. My understanding is he had long since passed, and I never knew the guy, and I didn't care because, he wasn't an active part of my life. And so this guy reaches out, and, in the last couple years, I got a brother down in North Carolina. I wish we were a little closer, but I did go down. I did see the Panthers game with him, unfortunately. Bad outcome. But went down to Charlotte, spent a little time with my brother last year, and he's come and spent a little time with my boys. But anyways, my brother in Charlotte had sent me a divorce certificate about 3-4 years ago. And, one day I picked it up and I looked at it and I'm like, oh, my mom and my dad's divorce certificate. Thanks, Chris.
Right.
And he has a different father, so apparently he didn't feel like it was his. It was more mine, right?
Right.
And then, I don't do math on the radio, Don, but I can do some math. 9, let's call it 10 months. And I backdated from there. And as the parting had been described, ashtray, leading with an ashtray, I don't think there was a lot of makeup sex after that point. I'm just guessing, not the way it was described to me. So if that's the case, then that guy's not my dad, right? Never was.
Ooh.
Yeah, so it was a big mystery. And this guy reached out yesterday and basically said, you know what, Crudy, your dad, he's still alive.
Wow.
And he's my uncle.
The dude that
maybe I'll
reached
tell
out
the
to
rest
you.
of that story later.
All right, I can't wait.
Yeah, it was quite, it was like sleuthing in reverse through DNA channels and matched chromosomes. But I have a 100% match for a uncle, 100% match for a half brother that apparently no one else in that side of the family knew existed either, and perhaps another half brother.
Wow, those Crudies get around.
Not Crudies.
Oh.
That is not my surname. That was my mother's maiden name. Crude is my mother's maiden name. It was not my birth name. The birth name I took.
Oh, are we going into it now? You got to tell us?
Well, just a little. Well, it was Giles. That was the birth name. When I first entered Madison Public Schools as but a wee lad, I was Michael Giles. And then the name, Crude, which was my mother's maiden name, had only been a few years. Well, I guess I was, 5 or 6. She reverted to use of her maiden name.
Gotcha.
And my brother and I did as well. So we became Croots about first grade. That actually helped me get a passport one time. If I couldn't prove that through the Madison Public Schools, I would not be able to leave the country and probably would not be eligible for a voter ID under the stringent laws here in the state of Wisconsin because I have a hell of a time proving my identity. And even that birth name, Dom, well, it was all a lie. It was all a fiction. I also know my surname. I
Have
don't
you
know
been
if I'll
voting
share that quite yet.
illegally all these years? Crudy, if that's your real name. I don't even
What's
know
it?
what to call you anymore.
Call me Big Papa.
I love it.
I didn't even hear the other part, but wasn't really listening that close. It was my story.
All
What
right,
was your
keep-
question?
Keep
I'm
going.
sorry.
Keep going. No, please continue.
Are you sure? I thought we were going to talk about the impeachment of Donald Trump.
We were, but you got on a rant, man. I'm down, man. I don't know this side about you to find, that there's this whole other.
No, it's going to take more time than I have.
Okay, all right.
So we're going to save this story. Maybe for the 4 o'clock hour. Because we got the fine guest at 3:30, and I got a story I want to get started right now from Jennifer Rubin. How's that for a tease? I just found out who my father is last night. Maybe I'll tell you later in the show.
Tune in at 4.
I never knew. No, this has happened all within the last 12 to 24 hours.
Wow, that's crazy.
Jennifer Rubin, poll warning for Trump and Republicans. Danger ahead. Ooh. Let's read
Danger,
on.
Will Rogers.
Danger. The latest Washington Post ABC News poll should send a shudder through the Republican Party. only 38% of Americans approve of President Trump's performance, while 58% disapprove. And I'd say that number should be much higher. And Dominic, 48% strongly so. I count myself amongst them.
And I.
The majority of the poll was taken after the killing of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, for which a majority give Trump credit. Trump's approval rating in battleground states such as Ohio, Iowa, Pennsylvania, Minnesota, and Wisconsin, 40 to 55%, 40% approve, 55% disapprove, are only slightly better than his overall numbers. A plurality, 49 to 47%, approve of impeachment and removal, while a large majority, 58 to 34%, disapprove of how he being Trump, is handling impeachment. Perhaps smearing respected civil servants, threatening the whistleblower, and insulting members of Congress is not the way to go.
Maybe?
By a margin of 55 to 35%, Americans think Trump did something wrong regarding Ukraine. 47% say he did something seriously wrong. It's a good thing the House is moving to open hearings. By a 65 to 33% margin, Americans do not like closed-door proceedings. Well, we can put that one in the rear view and that talking point behind us, right, Dom? Now, 66% think Trump has behaved in an unpresidential way, and that's just the supporters, Dom. And 58% say in a way damaging to the United States. A majority thinks the pullout in Syria damaged our image as a reliable ally, and a majority, 54 to 28%, think he made us less respected in the world, I'd say. Democratic numbers are not stellar either. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's approval numbers, 38 approve, 48% disapprove, that's minus 10. And Democrats' handling of the impeachment, 43B, 50, are underwater, but far more positive than Trump's. If they drill down on Trump's approval numbers, Republicans might go into a full panic mode. His approval numbers are atrocious among women, 31 and 64. 31 approve, 64 disapprove.
Ouch.
White college graduates, 3861. Women college graduates, 3267. Suburban dwellers, 4156. And independents, like my little buddy, 38% approval, 57% disapprove. Amongst suburban women, looking at you, housewives of Waukesha County, he trails 33 to 63%. His only surviving majority, Dom, white evangelicals.
Of course.
You want to hear their numbers?
Yes.
Oh, they love him, Dom.
Oh, they do, yeah. They love some Trump.
Amongst white evangelicals, the churchy sorts, the high moral sort of people, they lead with their good Christianity, Dom. They offer 74% support of this president. Just 23% don't find him Christ-like.
Wow. What is it with the evangelicals, the white evangelicals? Is he the second coming?
I got a letter from one of our fine audience members, Dom, and, I was just telling a little story about the family that I never knew I belonged to, and maybe I'll tell you the rest of that story at the top of the 4 o'clock hour. I'll save it for then. But I got a letter from one of our audience members talking about his family and Trump, and they are evangelical Christians, and it's a good story. I'll share it with you next. He gave me permission. I might change the names to, protect the innocent. Maybe I'll call them Crudies.
There you go.
Come back with us. More Devil's Advocates, your Friday grievances as well. TGIF. The number, 844-967-2789.
Check it out. Yeah. Puff Daddy, Biggie Smalls, Julia Mafia, represent, baby.
Put your name on it.
Are you suggesting that I'm not who I say I am?
If I were to guess, I have one name in mind.
Oh, I have so many names.
Jared Ferguson, it's a funny name. Thinking of a new electric bike next year? Well, fall's the best time to buy. Over $400 off any electric bike at Crazy Lenny's e-bikes. Make a down payment on a fall sale price, but you don't have to pick up the e-bike until April. Free winter storage. The guarantee starts when you pick up your new e-bike next April. $1,700 e-bikes are $1,200. $1,200 e-bikes are $900. $1,100 e-bikes are $600 for a new e-bike. Fall is the time to get a new e-bike. Save $400. Pick it up in April at Crazy Lenny's.
Tune in to Wisconsin's Political Talk on WRRD 1510 AM. Weekdays, hear the Earl Ingram Show from 6 to 9 a.m. Next, it's Stephanie Miller from 9 to 11. From 11 till 2, the Tom Hartman Program. At 2 o'clock, it's Matt Flynn Direct. From 3 to 6, the Devil's Advocates. And at 6, it's Busted Pencils, Brandy Grayson, and Maggie Dawn. Wisconsin's Political Talk. Listen online at newstalk1510am.com.
You concerned about speaking up at work? Do you feel like you have no say in your day-to-day work routine? Join Teamsters Local 344. Call 414-258-4545. Get a seat at the table. Join your brothers and sisters in negotiating for better wages, hours, and working conditions, and be part of the most powerful union in North America. Teamsters Local 344 covers sales and service throughout Southeast Wisconsin and package and airlines statewide. Contact Teamsters Local 344 at 414-258-4545 or at local344.org.
Have a drink at Regano's Roman Coin. This neighborhood corner tavern is as classic as the street it occupies. Family owned and operated since 1966, Regano's Roman Coin is located in a former Pabst Tide House on historic Brady Street, serving an array of craft beers with a focus on Wisconsin breweries. Also, weekly drink specials, trivia on Wednesdays, seasonal sporting events, parties hosted for all occasions, and pet friendly. Open 11 a.m. Tuesday through Friday, 10 a.m. Saturday and Sunday, closed on Monday. Regano's Roman Coin, Milwaukee's pet friendly, cash only order and classic corner tavern.
Grass-fed, locally raised, 100% organic. Tom and Krutz are the Devil's Advocates.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show, streaming on YouTube, Facebook, and on Twitter. Also on the phones, talk or text toll free, 844-967-2789. Crudy, we started with this Jennifer Rubin piece. Lots of polling numbers, and here are her takeaways. Callers, be patient. Let's just blast through this. First, unless you are a Senate Republican from a state with a whole lot of white evangelicals, association with Trump may be injurious to your political survival. That should leave lawmakers such as Susan Collins of Maine, Joni Ernst of Iowa, Martha McSally, Arizona, and Cory Gardner from Colorado, from states with less than 26% white evangelicals, looking to separate themselves from Trump and consider breaking with him on impeachment. Second, this is not a 50-50 country, but rather a country approaching 40-60 as Trump alienates just about every cross-section outside his base. Trump's base is a dwindling minority of the population, and as isolated as his supporters are in the right-wing media bubble, that bubble has not tainted the majority of the country. Third, Trump's numbers with Americans under 30, Curdy, here's this number, 2272. Suggest he and perhaps the Trumpized brands of politics is going to wane as these Americans age and vote in greater numbers. And finally, Jennifer Rubin writes, Republicans who deny Trump did anything wrong might want to think how that is going to play when even before they hear the evidence directly, 55% say he did something wrong, 47% say seriously so. They might want to start thinking how they can exact some punishment and throw him overboard before he drags the entire party under in 2020. Democrats should start thinking about how to explain in public hearings that what Trump did is so wrong as to necessitate impeachment. All in all, if Republicans ever break free of their irrational fear of Trump and his base, whose power is amplified by gerrymandering and the Electoral College, they might recognize that saving him is becoming incompatible with saving themselves.
844-967-2789. It's Friday. We air your grievances here. First up today, looks like it's going to be Bob from New Berlin. Bob, welcome. What do you got for us?
Hey, guys.
Hey, Bob.
Well, I know you guys don't agree with me, but I think impeaching Trump is going to hurt us in the coming election. And the reason I say that is, in order to impeach him, you would have to get 2/3 of the Senate. and the Senate is mostly Republicans. And they are, no matter what Trump does, they are not going to vote to impeach.
Well, that depends on the will of the American people, Bob. And the Democrats have to go make the case publicly. And Nancy Pelosi said today, those public hearings, they're going to start this month. It is much different to read it in the Washington Post than see a guy in his decorated war uniform, like the Lieutenant Colonel Vidman this week. When he goes and testifies publicly, Bob, on the nightly news, that's going to ring true with the American people. It's going to be very damaging to Donald Trump and any Republicans that would, try to attack his character? I mean, come on, Bob. First, you got to play it out publicly, and then Republicans will judge the will of the American people. And the polling, it's already moving in the right direction, sir.
Okay, wait a minute. Now, I just wrote my 2 state representatives, Topanga and Neyland. About 80% of the people in Wisconsin wanting sensible gun control, the red flag law and the extended background checks. 79% wanting medical marijuana. I got a letter back from Topanga. They don't care. The whole thing is, they don't care. They got their political agenda, and Trump helped them push it through, and that's all they care about. They don't care about right or wrong, and they don't care about polling numbers.
Well, that's because they're gerrymandered like bugs in a rug. Firmly, at least those in Waukesha County feel like they are. See Chris Topanga. But come back with us. We're going to make a case, a business case, against Donald Trump. And we're going to have a fine guest. His name, Jim Doyle, not the former governor. This Jim Doyle is the president of the Business Forward Foundation. More Devil's Advocates. We'll be right back. Thank God it's Friday.
Want to see the super sexiest political show on earth? Check out the Devil's Advocates on YouTube.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
GOAT, G-O-A-T, acronym, stands for Greatest of All Time. As in, spaghetti sandwiches for dinner? They're my fave. Dad, you're the GOAT.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
All right, well, what does your church tell you about when people say that they're the second coming of God? My reason tells me the man is certifiable. I want your opinion, Gary.
I would say anybody who comes back and says that, I would say you'd be the Antichrist.
I am the chosen one.
So Trump is the Antichrist then, Gary, by that logic?
No, I'm not saying he is, but I'm
But
saying
he said he's the chosen one.
I am the chosen one.
Gary, by your biblical logic, Donald Trump is the Antichrist.
Listen to the Devil's Advocates live weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m.
You are listening to WRRD 1510 AM, Waukesha, Milwaukee. Always streaming at newstalk1510am.com.
From the Capitol in Madison, this is Wiz Politics Midday.
Good afternoon. I'm Pat Pobletti, and our report for Tuesday, October 29th is brought to you by Spectrum. Governor Tony Evers has signed an executive order creating a panel to encourage participation in the 2020 census. But first, Evers said that he's hopeful that, quote, we're going to put pressure on people to have them change their mind on the special session he called last week to address gun violence. Senate Majority Leader Scott Fitzgerald and Assembly Speaker Robin Vos were quick to reject the Gov's call to act on a red flag law and universal background checks in a special session next month, vowing they will stand to protect Second Amendment rights. And Fitzgerald pledged to gavel in and gavel out of session without taking up the pair of proposals. But Evers yesterday called on Fitzgerald and Vos to allow lawmakers to vote on the measures. Said Evers to reporters in Milwaukee, quote, "They're 2 people out of 132, and we cannot allow them to stand in the way of having the people of Wisconsin know exactly where their representatives stand on the issues." I think, frankly, just from a political point of view, I think it's crazy that they would decide that 80% of the people in the state of Wisconsin should just go jump in the lake. Additionally, all 3 state Supreme Court candidates will meet in a forum for the first time at a November 19th event hosted by Foley and Lardner in downtown Madison. The forum, featuring Marquette University Law School professor Ed Falone, Dane County Judge Jill Karofsky, and Justice Daniel Kelly, will be moderated by Professor Michael Wagner of the UW-Madison School of Journalism and Mass Communications. Finally, speaking at a news conference yesterday, Evers noted that Wisconsin was among the national leaders in census participation rates in 2010. But the Gov added the newly formed Complete Count Committee would be necessary to reach out to the estimated 600,000 Wisconsinites the U.S. Census Bureau considers hard to count. The Census Bureau defines hard to count populations as those that are difficult to locate, contact, persuade, or interview. Those falling under the definition span the spectrum of social and economic status, from those who live in gated communities, to the homeless, to the disabled, or those who lack a shared language with a census interviewer. For WisPolitics Midday, sponsored by Spectrum, I'm Pat Popoletti.
This has been WisPolitics Midday. For more state government and political news, visit wispolitics.com.
This is Dom from the Devil's Advocates. You know, in the 7 years that Crudy and I have been doing the show, we have never had a more engaged, dialed in, and motivated audience, and we love them for it. Now is the time for you to reach the greatest audience ever. Call now, advertise with the Devil's Advocates and Real Resistance Radio. Market your products or services, get your message out, join the resistance. Call us at 414-635-0872. That's 414-635-0872, or go to realresistanceradio.com.
The Devil's Advocates. They refuse to do math on the radio.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Dominic, we got a fine guest joining us right now live via phone. He is Jim Doyle, president of the Business Forward Foundation. Jim, welcome to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it.
Jim, I hate to do this right from the top, but our former governor, or at least 2 governors ago here in the state of Wisconsin, was also Jim Doyle. You're not that Jim Doyle, right, Jim?
I am not, no.
Now, Business Forward Foundation, I understand this is a consortium of business people, primarily Democratic business people. But, Jim, I'll let you characterize the group. Describe the Business Forward Foundation for our audience, please.
Yeah, sure. Business Forward helps local business leaders across the country brief mayors, governors, Congress, the administration on issues they care about, like taxes, infrastructure, trade, we help them explain to Washington and their state house how different policies affect their business. We work with Republicans, Democrats, independents. There's a real bias to Business Forward, but it's a bias to get things done. It's an action-oriented, data-driven group of people who generally support immigration reform, infrastructure investment. They want to try to fix Washington. They hate waste. They hate gridlock. And the report that we just published called Answering America is the product of all these briefings we do around the country. And it's essentially the questions we hear a lot answered by business leaders with the arguments that they think make sense. And then we use data that business people trust most. So it's not progressive arguments for immigration reform. It's not moral arguments for immigration reform. It's the business case for immigration reform. We tend to focus on costs, return on investment. We look at what our competitors are doing. And what we think is really valuable about this is, if you're trying to explain your position on an issue to someone in the middle, it really helps to use the business case. We're so focused on arguing over Trump's behavior that we forget a lot of his policies were popular. And it's perfectly reasonable for our neighbors to be asking, is America full? Will a wall make us safer? Should Washington be doing more to save coal companies? And what we do is we help people walk through those questions.
Okay, begs the first one, Jim. Should we build that wall, sir?
Well, so again, a lot of people would say it's a moral outrage. What we say is there are easier, cheaper ways to guard the border. Bill Hurd, a Republican member of Congress, who has 820 miles of border in his district. He's a former CIA agent. This is no liberal. says a wall is wasteful. There are cheaper ways to do it. MIT engineers priced the wall at $31 billion. Bill Hurd's plan would cost $1 billion. It'd use sensors. It'd use drones and patrols. And what Bill points out that I think is really important, and we need people to understand, is bad guys and drugs don't cross across the desert. They cross on planes, on boats, in trucks going through the gates. A wall across the desert doesn't really help us keep it safer. It's just going to cost a lot of money. What we also hear from business leaders when we talk about the wall is they say, well, why are we spending $30 billion or $31 billion on a wall when we should be spending that money on bridges in my town or levees along the Mississippi River or airports? And I think one thing that people don't understand, and I think it's really important for Americans to know, is the big expense from the wall isn't the $31 billion. It's the fact that the president has held up infrastructure bills for 3 years as a negotiating tactic for his wall. So he came in promising a big infrastructure deal. He has yet to submit a plan. The guy had control of Congress for 2 years and has the Senate now, and still has not submitted an infrastructure bill because he's trying to get his wall.
Jim Doyle, President, Business Forward Foundation, our fine guest live via phone. Jim, I know a lot of the data that you guys are talking about is directed towards the Midwest. I'd like to talk about one of the Republican senators here, Ron Johnson. He's a frequent guest on our show, and even Ron would readily admit that his interpretation of the wall was a virtual wall. But more importantly, at least to me, sir, I'm a late tax filer. I'm a small business owner. And Ron Johnson and guys like Ron Johnson promised the American people, first they promised the workers a tax cut, but more important to a self-centered guy like me, sir, they promised me a tax cut. And as a designated S-Corp who just got done filing his deferred taxes recently, I know for sure, despite the cut in the marginal tax rate, they took away so many of my write-offs, sir. I paid higher taxes on less profit this year under the new Trump tax plan. What are small business people saying? How is it affecting their bottom line?
Well, first, I'd say that this is too much fun to call it work. So I agree with you on that. Again, what the best way to do this, the business case, is just to do the math. So President Trump and Republicans in Congress promised a middle-class tax cut. They promised that the wealthy families wouldn't benefit. That's a clear promise they made. And if you did, then the bulk of the money would be going to middle-class people, and the rich wouldn't be getting much at all, and maybe their share would be going to low-income families. What ended up happening is that the top 1% got 27% of the value. The next 4% got 24% of the value, which means the top 5% of the country took more than half of the pie. The top 20% of the country took 71% of the pie, which means 80% of the people shared about a quarter of the pie. So everyone probably listening to this show got a tiny, tiny slice. A few people got half the pie, and now they want us to pay the check. But what we found is, if you simply go through the math, sometimes people just don't care, or they just support the president, and they're willing to put up with it. What we find is important is, if you want to explain how bad these tax laws are, you need to explain how they did it, and it's pretty simple. The way that the top 5% took more than half the pie is, rich people make money differently than most people do, and these laws favor the kind of income rich people earn and middle-income families don't. It's capital gains on stock. It's inheritances. It's pass-throughs on a certain kind of business, but not most of the small businesses that people listening to the show actually run. So it's what we try to do in our book, which is available at businessfwd.org. It's called Answering America. It's answers to 10 questions. We've got 1-minute videos and all sorts of other ways for you to learn about this. Is you really need to sort of unpack it for the people. I sort of think about this as, how do you prepare for Thanksgiving when you're going to be talking to your brother-in-law who, thinks he got a tax cut and thinks he got a big deal, and you've got to bring the math, and you got to unpack it. So the Trump's tax plan, the one that Senator Johnson supported, was designed to give all the money to the wealthy. This wasn't a mistake. It was designed because they favor the kind of income wealthy people get. And what most people don't really appreciate is it cost $1.9 trillion. In order to pay for it, President Trump proposed to cut health care and Social Security by 1.65. So not only did we get a tiny, tiny slice, but we're picking up the check.
Now, Jim, also to my understanding, and the vast majority of our listeners are worker bees, the working stiff, the Jane and Joes that, pack a lunchbox and go to work every day, they might have seen a modest benefit in their weekly take-home pay, but to use, I think, the accountant's parlance, really they're just dicking around with the withholdings table. It's something of a shell game, and ultimately, when it came time to file their taxes, I think many of them realized they got shammed.
Well, the challenge is a lot of people got a little tiny break. What they don't understand is they're going to pay for it by paying more for health care, and they're going to get less Social Security. That's the deal. So they're net losing. One fact I think that shocked me and I think upsets a lot of people is when you do a tax cut, the tax cut benefit goes to people who own stock in the company. So if you give a tax cut to people who own Microsoft stock, that's who benefits. There are more foreigners who own U.S. stock and U.S. companies took more money from this deal than the middle 20% of the country. People in France and China and Brazil who own stock in U.S. companies got significantly more money from the Trump tax cut than the middle 20% of the country.
Wow. Folks, you are listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. That is Jim Doyle. He's the president of Business Forward Foundation. Have a report out called Answering America. He joins us on the phone. Specifically on the tax cuts, one further question on that. Obviously, huge deficits right now. The president says we're doing great. I want to address that in a moment, Jim. But do deficits matter?
Deficits matter most to people in the middle of the country, the middle income families in the country, because it's going to come out of Social Security and Medicare. But his argument was that by giving this tax cut, the wealthy would invest more, and that would create more jobs, and that all of us would be getting a pay raise. And one of the reasons why that didn't happen is because at the same time he was giving this big tax cut and putting his foot on the gas, he was slamming his foot on the brake with the trade war. So big companies that got big tax breaks had cash, but they had no reason to invest in U.S. plants, because if those plants can't export to Europe or to China or Japan because of Trump's trade war, they're not going to put that money in that plant. So just think about, there's a BMW plant in South Carolina that is beautiful. It's billions and billions of dollars invested into it. But about a third of those, the vehicles it produces are supposed to go to China. And because of the trade war, they're not exporting any of those more. BMW is not going to take its tax cut and put any money into that plant until the trade war is over.
And Jim, regarding the trade war, who pays the tariffs? Donald Trump says, hell, China is paying us all this money. That's not how I understand this works. Jim, what do you think?
We've got a chapter on trade in Answering America, and it's really important to sort of explain how a trade war works, I find. Again, because a lot of people really want to trust the president and believe in what he's doing, and frankly, we all believe we should be tougher on China. Here's the thing to understand. A trade war is expensive even if it's well run. A trade war that's run by tweet is just a mess. So you start, and the tariffs get paid by consumers. So they put a tariff on washing machines or steels. The price of your washing machine or your car goes up, and that's bad for the economy. It's bad for jobs. But then what happens is foreign countries retaliate with tariffs on our stuff. And when Europe or China is trying to decide which industry to put a tariff on, they're trying to hit us where it hurts. So, we're trying to help a small industry. They come back and hurt agriculture. They hit Wisconsin dairy. They hit Harley Davidson. Yeah. They go after the industries that we value most. So what ends up happening is trade wars are tough, but the way President Trump has done it is he started with some of our smaller, weaker industries, and he's burned our bigger, more important ones, and there's no end in sight, because they retaliate, then he retaliates against them, and then they retaliate against us. and pretty soon you've lost hundreds of billions of dollars of trade. People are paying significantly more for the products they buy, and it all started with the tariffs on steel, and the steel mills aren't hiring. They're not expanding. In fact, they're laying off people and they're going broke because there's just so much mess because no one's exporting from the United States because of the bigger trade war.
Jim Doyle from the Business Forward Foundation. I have one other question. News today, Senator Elizabeth Warren has released how she plans to pay for a Medicare for all. Obviously, healthcare, a number one topic in this country. As a guy that used to work for a small business and had to administer healthcare for hundreds of people, my understanding, my own personal experience, most people in business aren't in business to administer healthcare to their employees. So what's your take on this? Is healthcare for all something that can be achieved? What are the business community thoughts on perhaps getting out of the healthcare business?
Well, we've worked with 165,000 businesses across the country over the years. About 100,000 are still pretty active. We spent a lot of time talking about the Affordable Care Act when it was developed and helping it get passed. And so our network of small business leaders generally support sticking with what works. Let's protect the ACA from getting repealed. They're sort of waiting to see about the Medicare for all plans. I think what they want to see the ACA survive and get better. In terms of paying for Medicare for all, as Senator Warren has proposed, I haven't had a chance to really take a close look at it. And more important, I haven't had a chance to talk to our leaders about what they think.
Sure.
I will tell you one thing: it's refreshing to see a senator try to put the pay for out. We've got a program called Solutions 2020 where our network briefs all the presidential candidates, and we've briefed about 8 of them now. We've got 3 more in queue. And one of the things that they sort of ask every candidate when they're talking to us is, how are you going to pay for it? Amy Klobuchar's infrastructure plan, she spent half of her time talking about what she would do, and she spent the other half talking about how she'd pay for it. So what I would encourage is anybody listening, even if you may not be for Medicare for all, we got to get people focusing on how they pay for it, because this deficit and the debt is just getting out of control.
Folks, you are listening to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Got to find guests live via phone for a few more minutes. He is Jim Doyle, president of the Business Forward Foundation. Jim, got to mention manufacturing. We live here in the upper Midwest in Wisconsin. Manufacturing, a point of emphasis for the prior Republican administration. We are still giving away about $350 million a year in basically zero tax incentives to manufacturers. And on top of that, we add a boondoggle, which was sort of a Trump-Scott Walker special called Foxconn. Well, that one seemingly is not going anywhere fast, certainly not meeting the expectations and the grandiose promises of Trump and Scott Walker. But from your data's perspective, how about manufacturing in the upper Midwest? How should we be talking to our neighbors about this, Jim?
Well, so I grew up in Dearborn, Michigan. My parents worked for automakers. I worked for a steel mill to put myself through college. So this is important to me too. I think let's put aside Foxconn, because that's just corruption. That's what that is. President Trump has promised to bring back the jobs we lost, and I think it's really important for us to be honest with each other and point out that some of those jobs didn't move overseas; they just got automated out of existence. So I worked in a steel mill. Half the global steel jobs disappeared in the last 40 years because of automation. So Trump can't bring those jobs back. They don't exist anymore. And we got to stop thinking about the old jobs, and we got to start thinking about the new manufacturing jobs. We cite a study by Deloitte which shows you're going to have 4.4 new jobs at manufacturing companies over the next 10 years across the country, a lot of it in the Midwest. 2.4 million of those jobs, we don't have people to fill them with the right skills. And the thing we should all be worried about is, if those companies can't fill those jobs here, they're going to move them. So we have all these people focused on these old jobs that don't exist anymore, and we're not spending enough time focusing on training for people to get these new jobs that probably are better jobs, and we got to get people skilled up. You can't look back. You can't go back. You got to reskill, and that's one of the most important things for Michigan, my home state, and Wisconsin.
Jim Doyle, president.
And so if you want to learn more, we've got you can find a report at www.businessfwd.org.
Say it one more time slow for our listeners, if you would, Jim. It is Friday afternoon.
It's www.businessfwd.org. Businessfwd.org.
Jim Doyle, President, Business Forward Foundation, thank you so much for joining us on this Friday afternoon, sir.
Great to be on.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Folks, we are the Devil's Advocates, always trying to bring you insightful guests, new data from all around the world, and right in your backyard. More Devil's Advocates. We air your Friday grievances here. Dial them up. 844-967-2789. I think the best part of that interview,
the Foxconn.
Let's set aside Foxconn. That's just corruption. We know that, sir.
Yes, thank you, though. Jim Doyle.
I could do the wall over a longer period of time. I didn't need to do this, but I'd rather do it much faster.
And he is most displeased with your apparent lack of progress.
We'll build the wall. Don't even think about it.
You have failed me for the last time.
Mexico is going to pay for the wall.
I am altering the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further.
We're building a wall in Colorado.
Perhaps you think you're being treated unfairly?
I think it's a very unfair thing, what's going on.
Your lack of faith disturbing.
You concerned about speaking up at work? Do you feel like you have no say in your day-to-day work routine? Join Teamsters Local 344. Call 414-258-4545. Get a seat at the table. Join your brothers and sisters in negotiating for better wages, hours, and working conditions, and be part of the most powerful union in North America. Teamsters Local 344 covers sales and service throughout Southeast Wisconsin and package and airlines statewide. Contact Teamsters Local 344 at 414-258-4545 or at local344.org.
Gingras, Thompson, and Wachs, the attorneys with more power, more fight, and the most heart, are here to serve you, Milwaukee. From personal injury to civil rights cases, we are determined to combat dishonesty and injustice. And our team brings the fight with integrity, passion, and dedication that never quits. Together, we right the wrong, and we are ready for battle. There are law firms, and then there is Gingras, Thompson, and Wachs. Find us online at gtwlawyers.com.
ATU998 wants to remind you that last month it was revealed to county supervisors that millions of budgeted transit dollars were deposited into county benefits. A national economist found numerous interesting trails. In one trail, the wheel tax increase went to the transit budget. The transit budget ran millions under, and at the end of the year, nearly that same amount was added to county benefits. At the same time, County Executive Abley also cut a number of routes in his budget. While you stand in a cold corner longer or walk further in the cold because of route cuts, the county management seems to be more about their political comfort. Pressure from citizens has forced Abley to pull back on some of those route cuts. More of your routes will be on the chopping block next week. You can stop this today by calling your county supervisor at 414-278-4222. That's 414-278-4222. Tell your county supervisor to stop route cuts.
This message paid for by ATU Local 998.
The big and tall of political talk. Dom and Krutz are the Devil's Advocates.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show, streaming on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. On the phones, toll free. Talk or text 844-967-2789.
Dominic, thank you to our most recent guest, Jim Doyle, president of the Business Forward Foundation. A fine guest. Thanks for joining us, Jim. A little good of the order on a Friday afternoon, Dom. I'm a little frustrated that I ever have to have this conversation ever again in my lifetime. I've been working quite hard with your assistance and Fancy Brian and many that will remain nameless. We've been working to solve a little problem that is winter and daylight savings time. And why do I bring that up?
Why?
Because for our friends in the Waukesha, Milwaukee marketplace, listening on the greatest AM radio daytimer ever, WRRD 1510 AM, got to turn the radio station off when the sun stops shining. And that means today, this fine program is going to be interrupted at 5:30 p.m. Central Time.
In Milwaukee.
in Milwaukee, not in Madison, not on the FM, not on 92.7
yes,
FM.
the
Talking
FM.
92.7 here in Madison. Our friends here in Madison, they got it good, Dom. And, you know, I made a promise once upon a time to myself to build an FM in Milwaukee. But practicality and licensing and lots of other motivations led me to build an FM here in Madison. And, buddy, when I start, like February of this year, and we finally got it up in May and full power by August, like 5 trips up the flagpole. I mean, it was agonizing. And I thought to myself, man, I'm never doing that to myself again. Until I did. And today was supposed to be a great news day. Today was supposed to be the glorious launching of the new FM radio station here in Milwaukee. But it's not. And therefore, at 5:30 today, we got to turn the fine AM off. So here is the promise I make all our fine Milwaukee area listeners. 1, if you think 5:30 is bad, you're going to be really disappointed on Monday after daylight savings when we got to turn the AM daytimer off. And I reference both 1510 and 1580 AM. They're both effectively daytimers. Unless you live out in a farm field in Columbus, you cannot hear the 1580 signal after dark, and you can't hear the 1510 signal after dark. And come Monday, with daylight savings kicking in on Sunday night, that's 4:30 p.m. Central Time.
Boo.
Yeah, boo indeed, sir. And the fact that I have to explain the daylight savings and how that affects the AM daytime radio signals, Tom, is infuriating. But I make you this pledge. 1 week from now, we'll have a whole different conversation. And we might be celebratory. And perhaps the culmination of like 2.5 years of hard work with only a few digressions. Maybe it will come to fruition, and maybe we'll have a really, really big announcement that when you tune on the greatest radio station in Milwaukee's ever history, you won't have to turn it off at night because it'll be a 24/7 clear FM, big-ass, non-directional, high-tower signal. Probably. Maybe.
We're working on it.
Talk to you in like a week.
A week. All right. We'll check in a week.
I want it now. Come back with us. More Devil's Advocates on the other side.
If politics is boring, you're doing it wrong. Check out more at DomandCroot.com. Thinking of a new electric bike next year? Well, fall's the best time to buy. Over $400 off any electric bike at Crazy Lenny's e-bikes. Make a down payment on a fall sale price, but you don't have to pick up the e-bike until April. Free winter storage. The guarantee starts when you pick up your new e-bike next April. $1,700 e-bikes are $1,200. $1,200 e-bikes are $900. $1,100 e-bikes are $600 for a new e-bike. Fall is the time to get a new e-bike. Save $400. Pick it up in April at Crazy Lenny's.
Dom, the Devil's Advocates are going on an adventure.
Join Crute and I for our inaugural 420-2020 cruise from our friends at Expedia Cruise Ship Centers of Madison. We begin in the City of Angels with the Devil's Advocates reception on April 17th, departing the next day for a 7-night cruise with stops in Cabo San Lucas, Mazatlan, and Puerto Vallarta, Mexico on board a shiny new Carnival Panorama cruise ship.
Expedia prices local service. Visit them on Madison's west side off Mineral Point Road or Google Expedia Cruise Ship Centers.
You are listening to WRRD 1510 AM, Waukesha, Milwaukee. Always streaming at newstalk1510am.com.
A fiery combination. Transcript chat. I'm Mike Moss. Meteorologist Joe Surratt has dry weather this weekend in Southern California.
We're going to have single-digit humidities right into early next week. Winds will be lighter, but we will still have critical fire weather conditions.
That means the dry brush can easily ignite in places like Ventura County's fertile farmland, where a wildfire has been growing and where Sheriff Bill Ayub is asking drone flyers to knock it off.
I encourage in the strongest terms anyone interested in doing that to not do so. It is illegal, and it creates a very dangerous environment and hampers our firefighting efforts.
The drones present a risk to the planes and helicopters dropping water and flame retardants on the fire. The Trump campaign insists the opening of the formal impeachment inquiry has helped fundraising. And the president's now saying he might read to all Americans a transcript.
In an interview with conservative-leaning Washington Examiner, President Trump floats the idea of his asking for broadcast time so he can read the transcript of his call with Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky. The July 25th conversation is at the heart of the impeachment probe, as Mr. Trump said he wanted a favor from Zelensky regarding investigations into Democrats and Hunter Biden. Seeking support, the president will hold 4 rallies through next Friday. He tweeted, "Louisiana, I'll see you tonight. Big rally for Eddie R. He will be a great governor." That's a reference to Republican Eddie Rispone. However, the president is going to Tupelo, Mississippi tonight. Louisiana is tentatively scheduled for Wednesday. Bob Costantini, the White House.
St. Louis aldermen have unanimously approved a bill requiring gun dealers to alert police when a firearms purchase is denied because of a criminal background check, a move aimed at addressing violence in a city beset by gun crimes. If you're going to the UFC fights at Madison Square Garden in New York Saturday night, you may see the president. An advisor says he likes his fist fights. The Dow up 301. I'm Mike Moss.
I'm Dr. Tune in to Wisconsin's Political Talk on WRRD 1510 AM. Weekdays, hear the Earl Ingram Show from 6 to 9 a.m. Next, it's Stephanie Miller from 9 to 11. From 11 till 2, the Tom Hartman Program. At 2 o'clock, it's Matt Flynn Direct. From 3 to 6, the Devil's Advocates. And at 6, it's Busted Pencils, Brandy Grayson, and Maggie Dawn. Wisconsin's Political Talk. Listen online at newstalk1510am.com.
Hi, I'm Anton Capella. As Chief Technology Officer at Five Nines, I work hard to be a leader in my industry, and I know the challenges posed by changing technology. It's my priority to make sure your network is up over 99% of the time. There's no question, trying to manage your own business IT is risky, costly, and time-consuming. Don't let IT overwhelm you. Learn more about Five Nines at fivenines.com. That's the number 5, NINES.com.
Denies an associate of Rudy Giuliani a request to lift house arrest and GPS monitoring. Prosecutors also signaled a brother of Igor Fruman could also be involved in funneling illegal campaign contributions to GOP candidates. Parents are urged to stop using inclined sleepers.
The Consumer Product Safety Commission says parents should stop using all inclined sleepers, even ones that have not been recalled, because of the risk of the child accidentally suffocating. At least 73 deaths have been caused by the sleepers, and a recent study commissioned by the CPSC found that a design flaw in the sleepers made it too easy for infants to get themselves in a position where breathing was difficult. The CPSC is also pushing for new federal rules that would outlaw any inclined sleeper that had an incline greater than 10 degrees. I'm John Stolness.
A plane crash ahead of a Stewart, Florida air show scheduled for the weekend has left one person dead. That plane crashed during practice. I'm Mike Moss.
This is
U.S. Senator Ron Johnson.
Mueller, in an exhaustive and excruciatingly detailed investigation, found no evidence of conspiracy conclusion. Kind of end of story.
You cannot say that. The evidence they found did not rise.
I just said
the evidence they doesn't make it true, sir. The evidence they found, according to the Mueller report, did not rise to criminal conspiracy. They used encrypted data. They deleted data. They didn't have access to some of the Russian players. You didn't know that your president that you voted for was in negotiations to build a condo in Moscow and give Putin a cherry on top.
Just dropped your pen.
I did. I get a little excited.
Calm down here, Don.
But here's a lot of things that I would say, yes, there is absolutely collusion. Now, does it rise to criminal conspiracy? They could not prove that beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, that's not no conspiracy.
I'm just watching the veins,
I know.
The veins pop out of your neck here, and I'm getting a little concerned about you, Don.
I'll be all right if you just answer the question, sir.
Listen to the Devil's Advocates live weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m.
For WRRD and WTTN, I'm Stu Daniels with your headlines. Robin Voss said on Wednesday that climate change is probably real, but he's not sure. That is despite the fact that there is nearly unanimous consensus among scientists that global warming is real and man-made. The Republican Assembly Speaker also criticized a climate change task force created by Governor Tony Evers. Voss said the group was created for political purposes, and if the goal of the group is to, quote, make people on the left feel better about themselves, that's a non-starter, unquote. Governor Evers recently announced the task force. He asked them to develop strategies to mitigate climate change and to offer ideas for adapting to a warming climate. You're listening to WRRD and WTTN.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening.
3, 2, 1.
Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome back. Hour 2 of the Devil's Advocates radio show. Dominic, at this very time on Monday, got a fine guest. I'm using this time on the air to notify you and Fancy Brian.
Okay, good to know.
I booked State Rep David Crowley, and perhaps he'll have a big announcement on Monday.
Ooh, all right.
About 4 o'clock, 4:05, after the news and the commercial break. So, David Crowley coming on Monday. And I'll be Domless again on Tuesday, man. What's that, like 92 unexcused absences?
Oh, they're mostly excused.
By whom?
I'll be back on Wednesday.
I will be here without you, but I will have a fine guest that day. Mark Pocan will join me, my congressman,
nice.
my friend, and we'll leave you out of it on Tuesday. So I'm working on next week. We're going to have some fine bookings for next week. Dominic, though, I was telling a little story in hour number 1. I talked about this guy that reached out to me via Facebook and wanted to friend me, and I don't usually do that. You know, I'm not the Facebook friending sort.
I normally don't do that, Crudy says.
Lots of mutual friends, and this person reached out, and apparently it's because I got, come on, man. It's because I got on Ancestry.com. My wife bought me an Ancestry.com, and I got on it like a year ago, and I just figured, you know, membership lapsed, never really even dug in very deeply. Just figured out I was mostly...
So when you get an Ancestry.com membership, what does that mean?
I don't know. I didn't really utilize it fully. You know me. But I did find out that...
Did you take a dump in a box? I mean, did you do a cotton swab? Did you give a semen sample? I mean, what is the point here? I'm just asking, man. People want to know.
I think I spit in a tube or something, if I recall, and mailed it in. And they did DNA, and they said, I am primarily English and Scotch. And very little Germanic. I thought I was more Germanic than I am, but no, apparently not. English and Scotch, very pasty. But anyways, I get these characteristic matches with other people that apparently are my relatives. And some I was familiar with. One guy reached out. He's the second cousin. He's like, you know, Sue Ann's my grandma. I'm like, oh, that's my aunt. Okay, all makes sense. Never met the grandkids. But
so does Ancestry.com then basically compare your DNA sample to other people's DNA samples?
All the other people.
That's how they do this characteristic.
Okay. Into Ancestry DNA. You know, and it makes me very nervous how it could be misused. But setting that aside for now, I already sent in my sample, and apparently there are some very close matches, Tom. And this guy that reached out via Facebook and friended me, and against my better judgment, I accepted, messaged me so very recently. And I believe it was just, well, here it is, yesterday. A guy messaged me a couple times, and finally I got around to responding to him. And that just opened Pandora's box yesterday. So here is what he writes me via Messenger. Hi, Michael. Our grandparents had 4 kids. Now, he's convinced he's my first cousin. 3 boys and 1 girl. All are still alive. And as I've mentioned to you, Dom, my entire life, I've been little orphan Crudy, at least since I was 12 years old. Raised by a single mom, never knew my dad, had bought into the, you know, Elizabeth Warren-like story, my family lore that the guy had died in a car accident. My mom, you know, that's the ending of the story.
Right.
And as a 10, 11, 12-year-old kid, I never really dug in. And my mom passed away relatively young, and I never got the answer. So the answer, apparently, according to my new Facebook friend, my dad's still alive. Now, here's what he says. His dad is named Stan. My parents divorced when I was around 5. I'm closest to my Uncle John. I wasn't close to any of the, and here he gives his surname, growing up until about 8 years ago. Closer to them now than I am on my mother's side, which I spent some of the time with my mom, Anyway, your biological dad is alive, and I believe you have 2 half-brothers.
Nice.
And then he says, that's pretty cool. Some of the stuff he found about me on my Facebook page. You own a radio station and ran for governor. I'm like, I keep that down. We don't talk about that so much at my family gatherings anymore. Here's something else he said. Nice to see you're not a Trump supporter. Jesus. Not sure how that even happened. Spent some time in Hayward, Wisconsin.
Oh.
Had a blast. So beautiful as well. Anyways, let me know how I can help you with more info. He said my grandparents are not alive. A few other specific things. Like he had 2 uncles that hung out in Wisconsin in the 1970s. So it could be one of 2 uncles. So anyways, now I got a mystery, right?
Right.
And he doesn't really have all the answers that I have because he can't check me. He doesn't have the backstory of my life. So anyways, he's just comparing like 3-way chess. We're comparing our relations and who's closer to who. And as it turns out, there's some young lady who is the daughter of a gentleman represented to me by Ancestry.com, 100% my uncle. And this young lady, 87% my first cousin. And as the backstory turns out from my new family, Dom, apparently she was also a stranger to the family. A very recent arrival, a very recent joining of the family. They just found out about her a couple of years ago, and I got a couple of half-brothers floating around out there that I never knew about. And apparently I still have a dad who is alive. And I found this all out last night. My wife and I are going back and forth.
Wow, dude, that's crazy. So
it was crazy.
Are you like a reach out? I mean, obviously your whole life thinking that your biological father had passed. Are you curious? Are you going to reach out as some folks do?
Here's what he said. No one in my family knows about you or Seth, apparently one of my half-brothers. They just became aware of Mindy 2 years ago when I reached out to her and asked my Uncle John questions. Turned out to be his daughter.
Uncle John.
And then he says,
brother
oh, wow.
partying in Milwaukee.
Wow, so-and-so is Sean. Sean, apparently my other half-brother that nobody knows about. Look him up on Facebook. I've never met him. He'd be your half-brother or possibly a full brother. And I'm thinking, he's not a full brother. I think my mom would have let me know about that. I wouldn't reach out to him until you talk to Uncle John. So then I reached out to Uncle John, and it turned out Uncle John had reached out to me through the Ancestry portal about a year ago. And, really hadn't dug in and said, like, we were first cousins. We tried to compare notes and said, no, don't know each other. And
that was
moved on. And it was only when his nephew reached out. Well, so anyways.
So Uncle John being your biological father's brother.
Yes.
Gotcha.
So I know I've got an Uncle John.
And where is Uncle John?
Uncle John lives in Iowa.
Okay.
Uncle John seems like he does a lot of fishing. Recently, spent some time with his nephew, Michael, in Hayward, Wisconsin, doing a little fishing. And we look at the picture. My wife like, you look like that guy. Well, Ancestry says we are closely related. Well, one must presume he knows his dad's history, that it's not his dad because his dad never lived in Wisconsin. Wouldn't have been a plausible paternal character. So I know I got an Uncle Stan and I know I got an Uncle John, but then the guy he played coy. He wouldn't tell me the name of my dad. And I'm like, come on, man, you got to tell me. He's like, I met the man twice in my life. You got to ask Uncle John. I'm like, I don't even know Uncle John. So anyways, now I got this whole life mystery. I now know what my paternal surname would be. I know who my uncles are. I even know who my aunt is.
Now, is Uncle John on like the social media, on the Facebooks? And
Uncle John is, but apparently my dad, not tech savvy, not on the social mediums.
No, so Uncle John is not like friends with perhaps a candidate. For
and I
father.
tried to figure it out backwards through anyone with the same surname. I looked in 3 deep and I compared with my Ancestry DNA. So I've got it all the way down to the final piece of the puzzle, Dom. And I'll have to save that for perhaps next Friday's show. So I reached out to Uncle John last night. Also, through the Facebook. I figure it hadn't looked like the guy had been on Ancestry any more recently than I, which was like a year ago. So I thought, Facebook, he might get on Facebook now and again. So when he responds and I find out my dad's official name, maybe I'll tell you all.
Well, the great news, Crudy, and that is certainly a great story, and good luck and all that, but it's good to know, I'm sure a lot of people were wondering, not Immaculate Conception.
Now, one never knows.
I mean, if it happened once, it could happen again,
His
right?
name could be Jesus, Dom. I don't know.
We don't know.
I don't know. So I know I got an Uncle John. I know I got an Uncle Stan. I know apparently I've got two half-brothers out there in the world I've never met.
I want to party with Uncle John and his brother.
I got a cousin who's John's illegitimate, who I've never met in my life either. And apparently I got a mystery nearly solved, Dom. And, it's getting to be midnight. I'm like, this poor bastard. He's probably sick, although he's a time zone behind us. But, it's probably sick of whatever. So anyways, here is how I completed the evening about midnight last night. So I messaged Uncle, I put Uncle in air quotes, Uncle John, asked him to share which brother might be my father. I left my cell phone number just in case he'd prefer to call. And then my new Facebook friend, Michael, who started this whole mystery tour of the last 24 hours, responds, perfect. Info should come from him rather than a nephew that has only met his uncle twice in a lifetime. I'm like, come on, man, just give me just let the name out. Right? Because he knows.
He knows.
He knew 3 hours, 5 hours earlier. He was just doing the math backwards. He was trying to figure it out. And once he knew, he could have told me, right? I mean, we're Facebook friends and everything.
I mean, if you're Facebook friends, you've been through so much together.
We're first cousins.
Come on, cousin. My cousin would tell me.
Woody, I don't know these cousins well. But it leaves me open to a whole new consideration for, like Thanksgiving dinners and conversations about politics with my new family.
Nice.
And I looked up the one half brother, probably a Trump guy.
Yeah.
Uncle John made a statement, something to this effect, and I assume no one knows precisely who my Uncle John is, I hope. But his statement is something to the effect like, I am a man to do nothing with this life. And my wife thought, that's a relative of yours. So we got one guy who's a barbecue-eating foodie, perhaps a Trump supporter. Another guy who likes fishing and doing a whole lot of nothing. And apparently they're all relatives of mine, unbeknownst to me until about 24 hours ago. So that's my story. Top that one, Selby. How many illegitimate kids you got coming out of the woodwork from college?
None that I'm aware of.
844-967-2789. It's Friday. We air grievances. I got bigger problems. I'll think about it at some other time. And I'll tell you if I ever find out who the man is.
I just want you to know I hate you. Brothers don't shake hands. Brothers gotta hug.
Daddy, can I go with you? I said, yes, you can.
You are the father.
Are you talking to me?
More power, more fight, the most heart. Gingras, Thompson & Walks is more than a law firm. We're family. We believe in doing our best to help people in need and right the wrong that's occurred. For more than 35 years, we've helped thousands of clients across the state of Wisconsin get the justice they deserve. Our proven track record of success isn't based solely on our knowledge of the judicial system. Rather, we make it our priority to get to know our clients and their cases so we can best represent them. Gingras, Thompson & Walks. Find us online at gtwlawyers.com.
I don't see the support. I don't support it.
Wisconsin Senate Majority Leader Scott Fitzgerald doesn't see the support for legalized medicinal marijuana, even though the 2018 midterm referendum in 11 counties and the city of Waukesha passed by over 79%. Call Scott Fitzgerald at 608-266-5660. Tell him you support legalized medicinal marijuana.
No, I don't see it.
This message was paid for by the People for People Corporation. Donate online at p4ppc.org, p4ppc.org. Have a drink at Regano's Roman Coin. This neighborhood corner tavern is as classic as the street it occupies. Family owned and operated since 1966, Regano's Roman Coin is located in a former Pabst Tide House on historic Brady Street, serving an array of craft beers with a focus on Wisconsin breweries. Also, weekly drink specials, trivia on Wednesdays, seasonal sporting events, parties hosted for all occasions, and pet friendly. Open 11 a.m. Tuesday through Friday, 10 a.m. Saturday and Sunday, closed on Monday. Regano's Roman Coin, Milwaukee's pet friendly, cash only order and classic corner tavern. Eric Holder, he's the former U.S. Attorney General and current chair of the National Democratic Redistricting Committee.
The notion that Scott Walker is saying that we are doing something to push partisan gerrymandering, that is the pot calling the kettle total black. I mean, that's absurd. He is one of the architects of among the most gerrymandered states in the Union. All we're pushing for is a fair process come 2021.
Listen to the Devil's Advocates live weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m.
The Devil's Advocates, because it's always 420 somewhere.
And we are back from the 420 break. Thank you so much for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. You can join us on the phones. It's Friday. We air grievances. Toll free, talk or text at 844-967-2789.
Dominic, my only hope, my newly found uncles, and perhaps my father, I'll track down the name eventually. I'll get it out of somebody. I hope they're not overly disappointed that, I'm kind of a big stoner.
What?
No. Some people frown upon
Isn't everybody?
Well, my friends. Dominic, we got a nice piece of email in this case, from Josh. And I'm going to read it for the sake of our audience. This newfound family makes me think, families coming together for the holidays, and it's November now, Dom, and Thanksgiving just around the corner. And people are going to get together and stuff a turkey or a duck or eat prime rib, my preference.
Or a turducken.
Or barbecue. Perhaps my half-brother Sean will make some barbecue down south somewhere. But here's the only point. It brings us together with family that we perhaps don't spend a lot of time around by choice, let's just say. And, eventually there's going to be an uncle, there's going to be someone in the family that starts talking politics, and they may rub you wrong. And this, I would like to say, is the topic of Josh's letter to us. Alarming comments from Trump supporters, the headline. Dominic Crute, I'm a loyal listener of the show, an actual Republican, a never Trumper. I want to thank you for holding Ron Johnson's feet to the fire about his lies on the Mueller report and this Ukraine debacle. I've been impressed and thankful of the respect that your callers, and other viewpoints. Anywho, I want to share what I am finding to be utterly insane and dangerous line of thinking, and that I'm hearing from many in my own church and family about Donald Trump. I belong to a Wisconsin Lutheran Synod, a conservative church. My mother-in-law, an obsessively devout Christian and very successful business owner, has become making a series of comments over the past year that I find to be not just insane, but dangerous. I'm going to put a pin on it right there. We talked about the evangelical support for Donald Trump, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the only group that still supports this man. 74%, I think, to 23%. Here is what Josh writes us. In one conversation in which she was upset that I won't get on board the Trump train, she made the comment, and here's a quote from Josh, talking about the mother-in-law. Donald Trump is the closest thing to Jesus that we've ever had on earth.
Wow.
Stunned, I asked her to repeat it again. She again restated that Trump, for all intents and purposes, is Jesus to me. I was blown away, writes Josh. On another occasion, she was rocking my newborn son and said, oh, and I won't name the son, but don't you worry. The world is going to be a wonderful place for you to grow up because God sent Donald Trump to earth to save you from the gays and the liberals so you won't be forced to have sex with another man.
What?
He's just like Jesus dying for your sins. I wanted to tear her head off. And yes, this is an actual quote. I was so angry that I immediately wrote it down. 2 weeks ago, she screamed at my wife, who is of my viewpoint, that don't let me ever hear you make fun of Trump. That is blasphemy. Donald Trump was sent here by God and is the only thing in this country right now. She then said that making fun of Trump was the same as mocking God and would land us in hell for eternity. Again, nuts. And when confronted about his sins, she refused to acknowledge that he has ever done anything sinful and thinks that it's all just lies made up by the Democrats. Her term for which is also nuts. I wish this was just limited to one insane person, but it's not. My father has begun repeating the same line of thinking. Just a few weeks ago, he called me up to lecture me about how God has his hand on Trump and was guiding all of his decisions, and how upset he was to see the devil assaulting Trump and all sorts of evils. He then compared him to the biblical figure of King David and told me that Trump is being seen through the evil Mueller hoax and Ukraine hoax, just as he kept King David safe from Saul. Again, nuts! When I confronted him about Trump's sins, he justified it by comparing him to King Cyrus of Persia and said that God was using the imperfect Trump to restore faith to the nation and that the Democrats were the devil's forces standing in the way. Well, perhaps the devil's advocates' forces. As Josh writes, again, nuts. My pastor has been offering an occasional prayer in church that we all submit to Donald Trump as we would submit to God, which is deeply disturbing to me. This has also infected other family members and other conservative denominations who are trying to convince me on a near weekly basis of Trump's holiness. Let's see, I might have time. Aside from sharing these stories and how widespread they're getting even within my church and family, I'm getting very concerned that Trump's following is taking on the properties and devotion of a religious cult. I'm seeing it becoming more and more entrenched. The more damning things come out about Trump, much of which I credit to OANN, who engaged in alarming propaganda about Trump similar to what I see on Russian state TV. I have heard alarming comments about how they want to install Trump and his family as an actual monarchy. I was alarmed when he was nominated and thought it would go this way. But to actually see and hear words in which Trump is actually being elevated to a godlike figure among evangelicals is absolutely alarming. Now, Josh asked at the end, what are your thoughts? I'd love to hear your take.
Oh, yeah, I got some thoughts.
Some nuts family. I'll let Don take a crack on the other side. More Devil's Advocates. It's Friday. We air grievances. 844-967-2789.
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
No, I'm not gonna...
Teens in foster care will love you, even if you don't know the lingo.
Dad bod. Noun. The result of the occasional donut, always washed down with confidence.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council. Visit adoptuskids.org. Teens in foster care will love you, even if you don't know the lingo.
Dad bod. Noun. The result of the occasional donut, always washed down with confidence.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council. Visit adoptuskids.org.
Listen to the Devil's Advocates live weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m.
Scott Walker tweeting out from a La Quinta in a Rancho del Solio Ronald Reagan fashion shirt.
You know,
only
as a guy
online.
Who's wearing a Bernie Sanders shirt, how can you
Mine's
rip on
bootleg.
a guy for wearing a Ronald Reagan shirt?
Buddy, I got a Bernie bootleg on. This is cool on so many levels. You don't even know how cool I am.
I do not. If it could just be a little tighter. You are listening to WRRD 1510 AM, Waukesha, Milwaukee. Always streaming at newstalk1510am.com.
82998 wants to remind you that last month it was revealed to county supervisors that millions of budgeted transit dollars were deposited into county benefits. A national economist found numerous interesting trails. In one trail, the wheel tax increase went to the transit budget. The transit budget ran millions under, and at the end of the year, nearly that same amount was added to county benefits. At the same time, County Executive Abley also cut a number of routes in his budget. While you stand in a cold corner longer or walk further in the cold because of route cuts, the county managed management seems to be more about their political comfort. Pressure from citizens has forced Abley to pull back on some of those route cuts. More of your routes will be on the chopping block next week. You can stop this today by calling your county supervisor at 414-278-4222. That's 414-278-4222. Tell your county supervisor to stop route cuts.
This message paid for by ATU Local 998.
You concerned about speaking up at work? Do you feel like you have no say in your day-to-day work routine? Join Teamsters Local 344. Call 414-258-4545. Get a seat at the table. Join your brothers and sisters in negotiating for better wages, hours, and working conditions, and be part of the most powerful union in North America. Teamsters Local 344 covers sales and service throughout Southeast Wisconsin and package and airlines statewide. Contact Teamsters Local 344 at 414-258-4545 or at local344.org.
Madison Liquidators has officially moved into a bigger, nicer showroom off Pleasant View Road in Middleton, and they are proud to announce they have expanded to provide educational and healthcare institutional furnishings. They have great new offerings of quality new office furnishings from industry leaders like Groupe Lacoste and Via Seating, and you can see the expanded and extensive inventory of used furniture online at MadisonLiquidators.com, or you can call Kelly and have her help you make a plan for your new space. Start today at MadisonLiquidators.com and tell them you heard them on Talk 92.7 FM.
For WRRD and WTTN, I'm Stu Daniels with your headlines. If you ride the train to Chicago, you may have a new ride soon. The state legislature's budget committee approved spending $13.2 million on new passenger train cars yesterday. The vote was 8-4, with Democrats on the committee opposing the plan because it uses $5 million from gas tax and vehicle registration money. The current train cars are 30 to 40 years old and need to be replaced. The new train cars for the Milwaukee to Chicago Hiawatha run will cost a total of $39 million. The federal government will cover $25.7 million of that amount. Forecast for Milwaukee and Madison. Tonight, a chance of rain and snow with lows in the upper 20s. You're listening to WRRD and WTTN.
That we have left, we want to talk right down to earth in a language that everybody here can easily understand.
Save the $2 on tomorrow's paper. Listen to the Devil's Advocates today.
Oh, I'm not going to join a cult.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show. We are your afternoon cult, 3 to 6 p.m. each weekday. We only demand 15 hours of your life each and every week.
That's all.
And Dominic, coming back, this fine piece, Dana Milbank at the Washington Post. I'm going to let you read first, but I love the title, Republicans Convene the Cult of Trump.
Yes, great timing, and our heart goes out to you, Josh. Thank you for listening. Perhaps this
and
will...
sharing.
Yes, absolutely. This puts a little cherry on top. From Dana Milbank, as Crudy says in the Post, that Rep. Devin Nunes serves as the ranking member on something called the Intelligence Committee has always been a contradiction in terms. The California Republican displayed his intellectual heft earlier this year by suing a fictitious dairy cow that was mean to him on Twitter. Even so, what he said on the House floor during Thursday's debate to authorize a formal impeachment inquiry was jaw-dropping. He railed about the sort of person who believes in conspiracy theories and relies on defamation and slander, who spins a preposterous narrative with no evidence and only bizarre obsessions. Surely he was describing one Donald J. Trump to a T? ? On the contrary, Nunes applied these Trumpian signatures to Democrats. What we're seeing among Democrats on the Intelligence Committee, he said, is like a cult. These are a group of people loyally following their leader as he bounces from one outlandish conspiracy to another. It was perhaps the most extraordinary case of projection ever to present itself on the House floor. Republicans are defending Trump, who believes windmills cause cancer in impeachment proceedings literally sparked by his pursuit of a debunked conspiracy theory in Ukraine, and Democrats are the ones loyally following the conspiracy theories of their cult leader, who is apparently Rep. Adam Schiff? ? Maybe this is how Republican lawmakers survived the strain of the Trump era. They represent family values, but defend Trump through Hollywood access and Stormy Daniels scandals. They represent military hawkishness, but acquiesce to his Syria pullout and subservience to Moscow. They represent free markets and fiscal discipline, but justify his trade wars and trillion-dollar deficit. They represent law and order, but excuse his obstruction of justice. Republicans, therefore, need a defense mechanism to displace these unpleasant feelings onto somebody else. The grand old party is grossly projecting. It's Trump's "no puppet, you're the puppet" defense, but now his entire party is doing it. Trump has repeatedly advanced Moscow's agenda, pulling out of Syria, siding with Russia over U.S. intelligence on election interference, and withholding military aid to Ukraine. But Republican whip Steve Scalise displayed on the House floor, Crude, you got a picture of this, a poster of a hammer and sickle of the Kremlin, and said Democrats are the ones doing things Soviet style, Crude.
Let me read on, but before I do, a minor digression. I did post the picture. I took a picture of the TV. I was watching the testimony live,
no, dude.
The pre-impeachment vote, and he's got the spires, he's got the Kremlin up, and he's talking about a Soviet-style impeachment. And I'm thinking to myself, he should win an award for the use of irony. If I was going to use a visual aid to defend a president accused of colluding with a foreign power, perhaps Russia, one might say, I probably wouldn't take a stock picture and blow it up and stand next to a picture of the Kremlin. That's just a little too close to home, if you know what I'm saying, Scalise.
The irony is a little rich here these days.
Yes, it is.
Trump put national security second to his political needs when he withheld aid to Ukraine in order to get dirt on Joe Biden. But Rep. Liz Cheney, of all people under God's screen earth, Liz Cheney, the GOP conference leader, said Democrats are the ones putting politics above national security. Trump dismissed the threat of foreign election interference while his allies fought off legislation to strengthen election security. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy alleged that Democrats are the ones undermining the integrity of our electoral process. And then there was Rep. Michael McCall, a Republican from Texas. Here's a quote. "For one man to turn this country upside down," he said, "is something our founding fathers warned about. Surely this was about Trump, ? Nope, Adam Schiff." For years, the primary complaint about Trump has been that he tears the country apart and that his constant chaos has put the nation through extraordinary stress. But during the GOP news conference after the vote, Rep. Lee Zeldin, a Republican from New York, said the Democrats are the ones eagerly ripping our country in half. And Rep. Jim Jordan, you know him, Republican from Ohio, lamented what the Democrats had put our nation through for now almost 4 years. He specifically blames them for the Mueller probe launched by Trump appointees. McCarthy scolded Democrats for not living up to the pledge to be bipartisan, then walked out a fist-bumping his fellow Republicans, who laughed at Rep. Maxine Waters when she pounded the lectern and jeered Rep. Jim McGovern, the Democratic floor leader. Trump, who made the politics of projection an art form, held his own. His campaign put out a quote from him saying, "Democrats have committed themselves to destroying democracy." And Stephanie Grisham, press secretary for the chaotic White House, said after the vote, "I've got to say, Nancy Pelosi has lost all control over there." Pelosi's impeachment resolution prevailed 232 to 196, with just 2 Democrats opposed and 1 independent, Justin Amash, supporting it. Scalise, holding up a vote tally, celebrated the unity of every single Republican. Alternatively, you could view this as a cult-like behavior. Once he declared his support for impeachment proceedings this summer, Amash was essentially banished from the party. Also cult-like, Republicans claims not only that Trump did nothing impeachable, but also that he did nothing wrong when he withheld an ally's military aid for a promise to investigate a political opponent. As the post-vote news conference, Republicans were asked, "Will you go on the record and say the president did nothing inappropriate?" "Yes," chorused the 50 men and 3 women on stage. "A very clear yes," said McCarthy. "Doesn't he know that cults always end badly?"
Yes.
Washington.
Was it well
Could have
attended?
saved that morning.
Was it well attended? Come on, he was the
It
presidential.
was packed.
Yeah,
it was
all
packed, and I barely got in a coffee grinder place that day. Remember? I was quite peeved.
You come on.
But I eventually, worked the door and got my way in.
Beto O'Rourke out of the 2020 presidential race.
Now, if he'd only take like 10 more with him. Though.
Right. Maybe a few more. I don't imagine he will be the last to drop out, perhaps before the next round of debates.
Tell you what, Dom, we've got some polling, some Democratic polling, and of course, we've got our phone lines at 844-967-2789. Dom, new polling out of Iowa, and Joe Biden is not your front runner, is he?
No. Elizabeth Warren is the front runner.
Well, that's no big shock, but Elizabeth Warren and Bernie and Pete Buttigieg
Mayor
all lead Joe Biden in Iowa currently. And that's the first state, right? February 3rd.
It's coming
I believe
quick.
It's a Monday.
Warren is at 22, Sanders at 19, Buttigieg at 18, Biden at 17, and then Klobuchar at 4, Harris at 3, Yang at 3. Not looking too great for Mr. Biden, and certainly the also-rans after Klobuchar at 4%. That's not going to get it done.
Well, I think Bernie's showing new strength, and we saw recent polling. Bernie's leading in New Hampshire. I think Bernie leading in Nevada. And again, Dom, I point out, it's not a national race. It doesn't become a national race until the general. And even quite frankly, at that point, it's still about the Electoral College. And one quick side note, Dom, I know we were taken off course by Beto's recent dropping out of the race. But for all your Trump-loving buddies and friends and everybody else that say to you, the American people chose Donald Trump to be the president of America and therefore don't go against the will of the American people. No president has ever more gamed the rules, perhaps George W. Bush, but he didn't win by the will of the American people, not by about 3 million votes, right? He won the process. He won the Electoral College. He won by the rules of this little game we call democracy. So the next Republican you hear crying about process because Trump was, the anointed one chosen by God and elected by the American people.
That's just asinine and ridiculous.
Well, just remind them, no, he was elected by a process called the Electoral College because he lost the popular vote.
These evangelicals, I don't think they quite understand. When they justify all the behavior of Trump by just dismissing it, they lose their voice going forward. No longer can any white evangelical take issue with the man having sex outside the marriage. No longer can they have any issue with bribery, with campaign finance violations. They have no right to say anything. Furthermore, they have lost that voice. They have lost any sense of credibility they may have thought they had when they defend Trump.
Now, did they lose the right to be hypocrites under your newfound policy as well,
No,
Dom?
they own that.
I tell you what, Dom, let's take a quick break here. I want to talk about Elizabeth Warren, the new Iowa frontrunner. Oh, we want to get some callers first? I guess we got time, don't we?
Yeah, we got a little bit of time. Let's just hang on. Fancy Brian, hang on 1 second. The callers are patient. It's Friday. It's their day to air grievances. Let's make sure we get to them.
Well, here's the tease for the next segment. After the initial callers, Elizabeth Warren, she finally rolled out her plan, Medicare for All, and she claims her plan raises zero taxes on the middle class, and she tells you how she's going to pay for it. So I'd like to get to that, but let's get to the callers first. 844-967-2789. Who's next?
Paul from Madison. Happy Friday, Paul. What do you got for us today?
Hey, Paul.
Yeah, it's easy with these evangelicals if they really understand things. The Antichrist is going to come from the east. Where did Trump come from? And he will mass people to follow him, them believing that he is the chosen one. So he is the Antichrist. If you read the Left Behind series, especially in the Tribulation Force part, as well as Revelation.
I am the chosen one.
Well, now I would also say he could accurately be referred to as a Florida man. I guess he's renounced his citizenship of the great state of New York. Apparently, he thinks he's going to scuttle, tax prosecutions. But I think the point you make, an important one. Yes, I agree with you, sir. Donald Trump, in all probability, although I can't prove it, I think he is the Antichrist.
Well, I don't believe in any of that, Crudy. Thank you for the call, Paul. 844-967-2789. But perhaps our friend Jeff, who emailed us and told us a story about the evangelical support for Donald Trump, perhaps a great comeback would be, well, how do you know he's not the Antichrist? Isn't the Antichrist, have you mentioned, Crudy?
My faith tells me. My pastor tells me.
Yeah, 844-967-2789. Dick from his garage. Happy Friday, Dick. What do you got for us?
So, starting Monday, I won't be able to get you on my crystal set anymore. Is that what you're saying?
At about 4:30. Like right now, you will not be hearing us, not on the AM signals, not on 1580, not on 1510. And I think the cat's out of the bag, man. I'm building an FM, but it's not done yet.
Well, hopefully it's done by next Friday, and we can all celebrate. No, the guy you were talking about earlier, that was the most ridiculous thing I heard yesterday in my life when he went on that ridiculous rant about, a Soviet-style scam.
Oh, you're talking about Scalise. I thought you meant Dominic for a minute, but he was gone yesterday.
Scalise, yeah, he brought up the poster board of the hammer and sickle.
The Kremlin.
Would you really want to draw that line? I mean, it's like,
I don't get it. I mean, do they not see how that looks? I mean, or they're doing it on purpose. I mean, because this is how they do, right? They project. So it's just another effort of projection. No puppet, you're the puppet.
Oh, my God. I'm telling you, they're giving Democrats nothing but ammunition to use. And just that one was the best of the best, though, in my opinion, yesterday.
Hey, be careful. Don't be blasphemous against the cult leader, Donald Trump.
Oh, be blasphemous. The man, and anybody who believes that to that degree, it's scary, Dick. And thank you for the call. We appreciate it. I mean, how could you possibly be a person of faith and think that Trump was sent by God? Because what, your priest or your pastor or your religious instructor told you that? Really? I think our caller was right. He's more the Antichrist. If you're going to put anything on it, that's the one. That's why he wears the hair the way he does, so you can't see the 666 on his top of his head.
That's why the comb over?
That's right, man.
Well, you can see I've got no sign of the beast on me, other than my friendship with you. Guilt by association. Come back with us. It's Friday. We air grievances. Got a buddy coming in the 5 o'clock hour. Crazy e-bike Lenny. You better dial him up. In the meantime, if you've got an important opinion to offer, 844-967-2789. The cult of the Devil's Advocates comes right back.
No puppet. No puppet. I am the chosen one.
And again, you may be the Antichrist.
Thinking of a new electric bike next year? Well, fall's the best time to buy. Over $400 off any electric bike at Crazy Lenny's e-bikes. Make a down payment on a fall sale price, but you don't have to pick up the e-bike until April. Free winter storage. The guarantee starts when you pick up your new e-bike next April. $1,700 e-bikes are $1,200. $1,200 e-bikes are $900. $1,100 e-bikes are $600 for a new e-bike. Fall is the time to get a new e-bike. Save $400. Pick it up in April at Crazy Lenny's.
Tune in to Wisconsin's Political Talk on WRRD 1510 AM. Weekdays, hear the Earl Ingram Show from 6 to 9 a.m. Next, it's Stephanie Miller from 9 to 11. From 11 till 2, the Tom Hartman Program. At 2 o'clock, it's Matt Flynn Direct. From 3 to 6, the Devil's Advocates. And at 6, it's Busted Pencils, Brandy Grayson, and Maggie Dawn. Wisconsin's Political Talk. Listen online at newstalk1510am.com.
I'm State Representative Jimmy Anderson. Like me, 25% of American adults have a disability, yet vote at a rate almost 5% lower than the general public. If voters with disabilities turned out at the same rate, that would be over 2 million more votes nationwide. Your vote is your voice, so be heard. Elected officials make decisions on issues you care about, from transportation to Medicaid, but they won't hear your voice if you don't get to the polls. To learn more, call 844-347-8683 or go to disabilityvote.org.
This message brought to you in part by the Wisconsin Disability Vote Coalition.
Hi, I'm Kelly, and my family owns Madison Liquidators. We've officially moved into our new space off Pleasant View Road in Middleton, and we're excited to announce that Madison Liquidators is now Dane County's premier dealer for Groupe Lacoste. In addition to their unbeatable 25-year warranty, Groupe Lacoste has 10 lines to choose from, ranging from traditional to ultra-modern, all available in 18 different finishes. Give me a call and let's make a plan for your space, or go online to madisonliquidators.com and shop our complete inventory of used office furniture.
The Devil's Advocates, tackling the issues you're not allowed to talk about at the dinner table.
To the Devil's Advocates radio show. Phone lines open at 844-967-2789.
Dom, I see we got some friends waiting online. Let's get back to them.
Pete from Milwaukee, you are up. Thank you for calling today, Pete. What do you got for us?
Hey, Pete.
Well, it seems like evangelicals are easily misled, or maybe it's because they don't have as much dissonance in their mind, and that they listen to a leader who is convinced that one guy is the person they should be following, and they're loyal to someone, and maybe their loyalty is misplaced.
The problem with religion, and I counted myself as an evangelical. I stood up as an adult and confirmed my faith, and I was rebaptized as an adult, Pete, through conscious effort. But here's the part that's troubling to me, even at the time. You got to set aside reason. Faith is supposed to be stronger than reason. Because if you use too much reason, you don't have enough faith. And I think there's somewhere in Corinthians about, God befuddling the man that tries to find him through intelligence or wisdom. Pete, it takes an act of faith. And unfortunately, this faithfulness makes the evangelicals vulnerable in some way, shape, or form to those that would choose to mislead their faith.
Yes. But there's some good news. I heard that Trump has made a big promise that he'll only do 2 terms. One in state prison and one in federal.
That's pretty good, Pete. I like that one.
Thank you for the call, Pete. Do appreciate it. You remember the interview Trump did, and he was asked what his favorite Bible quote was or something like that. He did the total Trump. Well, the Bible is a great book. It's very personal to me, and I don't want to get into the specifics, but yeah, I read it all the time. I mean,
he didn't give the Sarah Palin all of them.
All of them. What books do you read? All of them? I don't think so. 844-967-2789. Madison, Kurt, you're next. Happy Friday, Kurt. What do you got for us?
Hey, Kurt.
Heck, his residency may be Florida now, but I guarantee you once he realizes he's going to prison, I hope they're going to button down every plane that leaves this country, because he's going to be heading to Moscow, without a doubt. These evangelists, I'm in my 50s, and I've watched enough of the History Channel and the course of history, and not just the United States, but the other parts of the world. And evangelists, they are so weak-minded individuals. If you look into how they easily grab onto things, these are the same people that easily became under the rule of fascism. And the same doctrine as Hitler. They want to be told what to do.
Yes.
And they're told this elaborate, fantastical story. And the greater the diatribe of it, the more they buy into it. I mean, you can see them swaying back and forth in their pews, and you got this huckster on stage just leading them anywhere he wants to take them. And it's really time that we start changing the laws of what constitutes a religion. And we need to identify exactly the rules of what they can do before, wham, They
Come
get
on,
taxed,
man.
And not
Government's
only get
not
taxed,
supposed
but
to
if they
define religiosity for the people, Kurt.
Kurt,
It's the whole
I'm with
separation.
Kurt, man. You know what? Let's tax them all, and they can be whatever the hell they want. They can say whatever the hell they want. Brian found that Trump cut. If you would please, Brian, let's play it for the people.
This is from Bloomberg, with all due respect. This is on August 28th of 15.
I'm wondering what one or two of your most favored Bible verses are and why.
I wouldn't want to get into it because to me that's very personal. You know, when I talk about the Bible, it's very personal, so I don't want to get into verses. I don't want to get into.
There's no verse that means a lot to you that you think about or cite?
The Bible means a lot to me, but I don't want to get into specifics.
Now, Dominic, Josh, I read an email from Josh, a listener of the show, describes himself as a never-Trumper Republican. And before I shared his story, of course, I asked his permission. I sent him an email, and Josh responded as such. Yes, you can absolutely share these stories as you see fit. And then he said, this whole thing is just insane. I recently purchased Mein Kampf after reading the Vanity Fair story about Donald Trump and Ivana's divorce. It was mentioned in depositions that he kept a copy of Hitler's speeches on his bedside table. The scary thing is that upon reading the book, if you were to switch the word Jew for Mexican and communist for Democrat, it's almost identical to the language that Trump is using at rallies and other speeches. It's really disturbing, according to Josh. And you know what else might be really disturbing for the kids and pretty much everyone, Dom? Donald Trump has made a promise. He's going to do fireside chats, and he's going to read us the completely appropriate Ukraine transcript. Word for word, Dom.
Oh, great. How about he reads the unredacted Mueller report? I prefer that one.
Well, you wouldn't listen anyways. Come back with us. We are the Devil's Advocates. It's Friday. We're about to turn to the happy hour, and a good friend of ours, crazy Lenny Mattioli, talking politics, talking e-bikes, talking with Lenny. Stick around, please.
Some
More
baseball?
Devils.
You think we'll talk some baseball?
Maybe a little World Series. Maybe that politician that headbutted a camera guy.
Oh, come on. That wasn't a headbutt.
Yeah, I've headbutted a few, Dom. Cameras and people, that is. Come back with us. The happy hour commences right now.
What's your prediction? Prediction? Yes, prediction. Pain.
Personal file, 69, offense. He was giving them the business.
The name Zelensky.
If you missed something on the Devil's Advocates, don't worry. After you get over your shame, you can check out domandcroot.com. Podcasts and interviews updated daily.
Nobody loves the Bible more than I do.
You concerned about speaking up at work? Do you feel like you have no say in your day-to-day work routine? Join Teamsters Local 344. Call 414-258-4545. Get a seat at the table. Join your brothers and sisters in negotiating for better wages, hours, and working conditions, and be part of the most powerful union in North America. Teamsters Local 344 covers sales and service throughout Southeast Wisconsin and package and airlines statewide. Contact Teamsters Local 344 at 414-258-4545 or at local344.org.
This is Dom from the Devil's Advocates. You know, in the 7 years that Crudy and I have been doing the show, we have never had a more engaged, dialed in, and motivated audience, and we love them for it. Now is the time for you to reach the greatest audience ever. Call now, advertise with the Devil's Advocates and Real Resistance Radio. Market your products or services, get your message out, join the resistance. Call us at 414-635-0872. That's 414-635-0872, or go to realresistanceradio.com. You are listening to WRRD 1510 AM, Waukesha, Milwaukee. Always streaming at newstalk1510am.com.
Candidate dropout, new fire raging. I'm Barbara Cusack. The latest to drop out in the 2020 Democratic presidential contest is former Texas Congressman Beto O'Rourke. Correspondent Leila Santiago says, for one, his fundraising cooled.
He was expecting to come in raising a lot of money. That slowed down in the second quarter. Then in the third quarter went up a little bit, but still appears not to have been enough.
News comes as Democratic presidential candidates are gathering in Iowa for the state party's annual fundraiser. The latest wildfire, the Maria Fire, has forced thousands of people from their homes near Santa Paula in Southern California's Ventura County.
County Fire Chief Mark Lorenzen says the nearly 9,000-acre fire is added to the 1,800-plus-acre Easy Fire that broke out several days ago.
We are in the middle of a big fight. We are about a week into this, and the end is not yet in sight.
Ventura County Fire is getting some help from the State Department of Forestry and Fire Protection, known as CAL FIRE, to help save agriculture. In this area are citrus and avocado groves, strawberries, and other crops. Shifting winds, while not as strong, are still a hampering factor. Jim Roop, Los Angeles.
New York Governor Andrew Cuomo believes a last-ditch legal maneuver is behind President Trump deciding to change his permanent address from New York to Palm Beach, Florida.
The timing is just too coincidental that you're in the middle of this lawsuit for him to release his New York tax returns, which would have a lot of information, obviously, that would reveal federal information. And all of a sudden, he wants to decide to leave the state of New York.
Cuomo believes that Trump's lawyers may claim that since he's not a New York resident, the state does not have a right to his tax returns. Fitbit is being acquired by Google's parent company for about $2.1 billion. Fitbit, a pioneer in wearable fitness technology, but it's been under pressure from other device makers. The Dow rose 301 points, the S&P up by 29, and the NASDAQ gaining 94 points. I'm Barbara Cusack.
Madison Liquidators has officially moved into a bigger, nicer showroom off Pleasant View Road in Middleton, and they are proud to announce they have expanded to provide educational and healthcare institutional furnishings. They have great new offerings of quality new office furnishings from industry leaders like Groupe Lacoste and Via Seating, and you can see the expanded and extensive inventory of used furniture online at MadisonLiquidators.com, or you can call Kelly and have her help you make a plan for your new space. Start today at MadisonLiquidators.com and tell them you heard them on Talk 92.7 FM.
Have a drink at Regano's Roman Coin. This neighborhood corner tavern is as classic as the street it occupies. Family owned and operated since 1966, Regano's Roman Coin is located in a former Pabst Tide House on historic Brady Street, serving an array of craft beers with a focus on Wisconsin breweries. Also, weekly drink specials, trivia on Wednesdays, seasonal sporting events, parties hosted for all occasions, and pet friendly. Open 11 a.m. Tuesday through Friday, 10 a.m. Saturday and Sunday, closed on Monday. Regano's Roman Coin, Milwaukee's pet friendly, cash only order and classic corner tavern.
The newly crowned World Series champions have been invited to the White House.
The Washington Nationals won't have to travel far for their White House visit, just a few miles across town from their home at Nats Park. The visit will come on Monday on the South Lawn, just 2 days after a parade is set to take place through the city. While historically a normal occurrence for any championship sports team, some recent champions have either not been invited to the White House, like the NBA's Golden State Warriors, or in the case of the NFL's Philadelphia Eagles, were invited and then later disinvited upon hearing most would not attend. The two previous World Series winners, the Boston Red Sox and Houston Astros, did attend the White House ceremony. John Stolness, Washington.
Golden State says Stephen Curry will miss at least 3 months after surgery on a broken left hand, and the opening session of the Luge National Championships canceled today because of heavy rain, high winds, and power outages in upstate New York. I'm Barbara Cusack.
This is a
Opiates has taken everything and everyone I've ever loved away from me. Everything.
I blew my ankle out and I got prescribed pain pills by my doctor.
If making my detox public is going to help somebody, I'm all for it. I just wish I would have had a warning.
Opioid dependence can happen after just 5 days. Know the truth, spread the truth. A message from Truth, the Ad Council, and ONDCP.
The Devil's Advocates.
U.S. Senator Ron Johnson, our friend, live via phone. What about simply raising the age of weapons purchases to 21 years of age?
We're sending 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds over to Afghanistan, and they're dying. They ought to be able to vote, they ought to be able to have a beer, and they ought to be able to buy a gun to hunt with as well.
Are you suggesting we lower the drinking age?
No. Can't they do that now? What is the age nowadays?
It's 21, sir.
We drink when we toast. We toast when we drink.
Yikes.
For WRRD and WTTN, I'm Stu Daniels with your headlines. Tomorrow is the one-year anniversary of streetcar service in Milwaukee. Ridership on the Hop has greatly surpassed the original goals. In the first 11 months, the city says people took about 740,000 trips on the streetcar. The original ridership goal was 600,000 rides annually. And Wisconsin lawmakers are working on a bill to allow college athletes to make money off of their fame. The bill is similar to a new California law that allows students to sign endorsement deals and hire agents. The bill is sponsored by Representative Dave Murphy of Greenville. Forecast for Milwaukee and Madison. Tonight, a chance of rain and snow with lows in the upper 20s. You're listening to WRRD and WTTN.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening.
3, 2, 1.
Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Dominic, we are sliding into the 5 o'clock Friday hour. 5 o'clock happy hour Friday. Man, I'm glad this week's almost over, but we're not done yet. We got a fine guest right here with me in the Madison studios. He's our good friend and fine sponsor, Crazy E-Bike, Lenny Mattioli. How you doing, Lenny?
I'm doing good, although, it's Friday and I'm kind of, it's been a long week and we've had some lousy weather. Maybe we should change it to your fine guest to your old guest.
Old guest.
Old? Like literally old? How old are you, Lenny? You're a young man.
Numbers, like numbers.
Numbers, years?
Yes. Far too many. Far too many. Seems like things politically are just as hot as ever.
What do you think? Impeachment, Lenny. Are you down? Are you down for impeachment?
Nah, there's not enough time left.
All it takes is a month. They could wrap it up in the House by Thanksgiving, wrap it up in the Senate by Christmas, drag his ass out for the new year, Lenny.
They could, and I could run a 4-minute mile.
Still run a 4-minute mile. Did they used to call you Crazy Roger Bannister?
No, they didn't. I once ran a thing in the olden days, when I was a kid, and Wild Buffalo roamed where your studio sits now. I ran 440 yards. That's the track around a football field. I think it's called 400 meters now. And 53 seconds.
Wow.
How about that?
Were you chasing a sale, Len?
No, I was running from a bill collector. That's about all I do. Let's talk about something. Wouldn't it be great if somehow some enforceable rules could be passed so that candidates could only talk about accomplishments?
Well, Lenny, I would point out guys like Scott Walker would have nothing to talk about.
That's my point.
But can't you spin anything into an accomplishment? I mean, isn't that the whole problem with Facebook just getting into, as from their perspective, whether or not something is the truth or it is not truth? I passed a $3.6 billion budget deficit. Well, if you got a piece of paper that says you did that, did you? And if it's contrary data, right? I mean, how do you enforce that? Who determines what that is?
But that's what we're doing. We're just going into a constant clutter. Just clutter. It's clutter.
Has it always been that way, Lenny, though?
No.
Was it better before?
The old
days?
There
was clutter. There was untruths. There were scams. There were just plain lies being broadcast on old-time media. You remember radio.
Lenny,
that's what we're on.
Lenny, what was the coverage like before there was radio and television?
Smoke signals. Smoke signals worked best for me.
How long did it take the average American to find out who won the presidency? 2 weeks?
Oh, years ago.
Horse and buggy, they would write out and tell
weeks.
The people?
Yeah, it could take weeks.
When we find out here in the upper Midwest.
Does that make it better? Does that mean, I'm not saying weeks, but, if we can find out at 2:30 a.m. instead of 10 the next morning, what's the difference?
Well,
whether or not I can go to bed tonight.
Well, that's your misfortune, not mine.
But we've increased the efficiencies on everything, and information certainly travels much faster than it used to.
Not information.
Sure, it does.
Information and data are two different things. There's so much noise out there, it's very hard to really get worthwhile information. I know I sell e-bikes, and we get customers come in all the time. Say, "Well, I'm going to go home and research this on my webpage," and we just know that fellow or lady are going to come back so confused. Not with information, confusion. It's a darn bike. It goes from place A to place B. Every one in my store has 2 wheels, 2 handlebars, 2 pedals, 2 handle grips. The differences are such small idiosyncrasies compared to this. Do I like it? Is it in my price range? Does it fit my frame? That's it.
Well, you're expecting reasonableness out of the consumer, Lenny. You can't always count on that, man. You and I have worked in
how dare I expect
aspects of retail for many, many years.
How dare I expect reasonableness?
Lenny, how much do you think? And I knew you were going to talk about e-bikes eventually, but plenty of people come out to your shop right over here on Odana Road, Research Park. And I think buying the e-bike from Lenny is part of the experience. I mean, my guy drove by today and he said, they're busy over there at Lenny's.
We were this morning. All of this, what's the worst snow in October since 1938 or some such clutter. But anyway, we were busy. Go figure.
Maybe it's the radio ads. They're working for you. And the smoke signals.
If we get tomorrow, then everybody on the air can hold me to this. If we get 3 more customers come in the store, I want to look at the bike you talked about on Crudy and Dom's show yesterday on the Devil's Advocate. I will sign a contract and buy advertising every single week except Christmas week till the end of March.
How many, Lenny?
I don't know that's how many weeks? 28 weeks?
No, I think we meant people. What's the baseline standard? We don't want you being Trump-like and moving the goalpost.
Come on, man. I'll give you 2.
No. I'm talking accomplishment. You accomplish getting 3 legitimate customers. They may not buy. I'm not going to hold them to that.
No, they got to buy, Len.
Okay.
They're not a customer till they buy. Up until then, they're tire kickers.
I'll change it till the end of April.
There are people who are confused on the internet, and they're coming in to talk to the man Lenny to get the facts.
They come in and they want me to share all my experience. I'm going to be 78 years old, and I've got all this 77 years of experience, but that's not accurate. I've got 1 year of experience repeated about 77 times.
Sort of a Groundhog Day, just relive that same cycle over
year after year.
How often do you drive angry, Lenny?
Don't drive angry. Don't drive angry.
Well, you'll get 2 different answers. You'll get the absolute, undisputable, accountant accurate facts from me, but Tara may have a whole different point of view about my driving.
Well, I like to use the expletives and the middle finger quite a bit when I'm driving around out there. Everyone much dumber than I when they're behind the wheel of a car and I'm on the road.
But you see, the difference is you're not on the radio while you're driving, at least I don't think. And so therefore, remember this. You can't go to jail for what you're thinking or for that mad look in your eye. You're just driving down the highway wondering why the guy in back's so close.
Well, you may not go to jail for it, but you could be impeached for it theoretically, Lenny.
Oh, you said that, not I.
Folks, you are listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Got an old friend, quite old. He's crazy, Lenny Mattioli. He's here with me in the Madison studios. He's always selling e-bikes, but I like to shoot the you-know-what with you as well, Len.
Oh, I do too.
You want to hear a real crazy story?
Yes.
I don't know, you may not have been listening earlier in the show. I shared this sort of a self-indulgent story. Out of nowhere, a guy reached out to me yesterday. I have always perceived myself to be an orphan. Guy told me not only does he know who my dad is, but the guy's still alive.
Really? That guy better have accurate data. That's
DNA. We've got a DNA test. Yeah.
Oh.
Like the
now he hasn't told me the guy's name yet. I know who my uncles are.
How much do you think he owes you?
Can I get back child support?
You could come in and buy all 3 bikes. We've made this just friendly contest, and then I have to, if 3 are sold directly from responses to your station, then I have to advertise every week, except Christmas, till the end of March.
Well, tell them you want the I'm Not Crudy Daddy deal.
What?
The I'm Not Crudy's Daddy deal. They got to come in and they got to tell you I'm not Crudy's daddy.
Okay. Could we slow down this broadcast so I can write this down?
I'll write it down for you, Lynn. I'll text it over to you, buddy.
We'll pull the tape.
No, I got it. That's fine.
Just tell them the Devil's Advocate sent you.
I'll just make each one of them a Godfather deal, an offer they can't refuse. Buy the bike. Use the bike. Enjoy the bike. And when the weather really gets bad, bring the bike back. Or if you want to re-pick it up and take it to a warm climate for a winter vacation for a week or 2, do that. We'll store it in the interim free. And then in April, when the weather starts to turn, come back in. That's when your warranty will start, and all the 2020s will be in, which will be a lot more expensive than closeout fall bikes on 2019s. I'll give you what you paid. I'll give you back what you paid for the bike towards the price of any 2020 model in my store. And I only have about 250 bikes on display.
Let's not be overly confusing. If I understood you, my old buddy, correctly, you will effectively give people a sale price right now in November on the cost of a bike.
Average of $400 off. Some are as much as half price. Some are $300. I don't think there's a 2019 bike in our store that's not at least discounted at least $300.
But knowing that most people here in the state of Wisconsin are not going to be able to utilize and enjoy this e-bike for a number of months.
Or very darn little.
Rather than putting a brand new shiny e-bike in someone's dusty garage for the winter, you're going to store it for them.
We'll store it. We'll keep the battery charged. We'll keep the bike warm in a nice insured, nice warm heated warehouse.
And the warranty won't start until they pick it up.
The warranty will start when they pick it up, and we have sort of a drop dead date at the end of April.
Awesome, man.
Yeah,
so that's a good deal.
Yeah, it's like the free use of a bike, because in case you do decide to trade it in, you've had the use of it till that day.
Lenny, do you see people using them a lot? I mean, this time of year, I mean, it's gonna be nicer. It'll still be chilly out, but the roads should be dry. Do you see people using them later into the winter versus the regular bike?
Yes, not a lot, but more than ever, particularly with the new snow tire bikes. In fact, there's more than a few customers who commute, and on days when you just can't commute, but many days of the winter, they have the tires they use in the winter. Some go all the way to studded bicycle tires, and then they change when spring, nice weather comes. They change back to their summer tires.
Studded bicycle tires, does that mean they put pictures of Dom all around the rim? What's that mean precisely?
Yeah. They used to use me, but as I said, I'm too old now.
A little past your prime.
Oh, yeah. Still
as a sex
Lenny.
symbol, that is.
Oh, wait a minute. I wasn't talking about that.
Were you a sex symbol once upon a time, Len? Did you perceive yourself to be
a Burt Reynolds
man about town?
I don't really know. I never perceived myself, and I don't really know what the fair sex thought of me, but I will say this. I wish I knew then what I know now.
And Tara wishes you could do now what you used to do then.
We'll have to interrogate Tara on that matter.
She's here giggling at us behind us in the studio in Madison, folks. He's Italian, she says. I think that's an endorsement. Folks, we are the Devil's Advocates. Dom's a Sicilian. I've seen him naked. Doesn't seem to have any effect on him. Folks, we got my good old friend Lenny Mattioli. He's selling e-bikes. He's talking life and politics here with me in the Madison studios.
I'm trying to have a laugh or two as well.
Lenny, you've also agreed to do something very nice for us in the next year, and we'll talk more about this after Christmas. Yes. But the Middleton Area Special Olympics is holding a fundraiser towards the end of January. And I got to thank you, buddy. You have generously offered to donate an e-bike for them to raffle off. And I think, that will go a long ways towards them earning their budget for these athletes, Special Olympics athletes. And the fact that my son competes, and I'm going to do some coaching this winter, that makes my life easier. It's less, whatever I got to sell other than maybe some raffle tickets. But Lenny, very excited about it, and thank you for the generosity of your spirit, my friend.
Let me tell you what, except for the grace of God, one of my kids might have been in the Special Olympics. My son, who owns the Navanta Pizza restaurants in town, sponsored two young adults in some crazy. They had to climb up the Olympic ski jump out in where was it? Parkside? Park City, Nevada. And when I saw that, there were heats climbing up this that were very, very highly trained athletes, young ladies and men, and I said, wait a minute, this young lady and young man have some special needs. I mean, how are they going to do that? How's the rescue? God forbid one of them slips and falls. How's this? I didn't want them to do it, but my son sponsored them, and I went out with them, and they would not be stopped. They did it with many other Special Olympians, and up they went, one rung at a time. It's so steep. I was afraid the whole time. And when the lady who finished first among those with special needs got to the top, when the helpers pulled you almost straight up onto the platform, almost every contestant would lie there for a few moments and then cheer or something and feel good. And this lady sat up and she said these words. Now, I know this is politically incorrect, but she said these words: handicapped in your face. I started crying.
Nice.
Aww.
I did. That was, what courage. What courage. I'm telling you.
Well, Lynn, I'm kind of hobbling around, and it's a very temporary condition, I hope.
Which only proves I'm a little more viral than
Viral or virile?
Both.
I've seen
both?
your naked videos go a long ways on the interwebs.
What are you talking about?
Your viralness? But Lenny, I guess the only point I was trying to make is that, even a minor inconvenience like a sore foot, a sprained ankle, and you plod along in life. And I was out in the parking lot yesterday in the midst of the snowstorm, and I'm walking, through ankle deep, just trying not to kill myself. And I think, so many people have a daily struggle, a hurdle they climb every day. And I can tell you, Lynn, my son has garnered great confidence and benefit from participating in Special Olympics. I mean, the kid, he beams, especially after he makes a few baskets.
Sometimes after I listen to too many political speeches and campaigns, I have to go back and talk with the Special Olympian and think about, what, Special Olympics has really done a lot of good. Maybe there is hope for us.
Lenny, you got a few more minutes?
Sure.
Stick around. Our good buddy, crazy Lenny Mattioli in the Madison studios.
82998 wants to remind you that last month it was revealed to county supervisors that millions of budgeted transit dollars were deposited into county benefits. A national economist found numerous interesting trails. In one trail, the wheel tax increase went to the transit budget. The transit budget ran millions under, and at the end of the year, nearly that same amount was added to county benefits. At the same time, County Executive Abley also cut a number of routes in his budget. While you stand in a cold corner longer or walk further in the cold because of route cuts, the county management seems to be more about their political comfort. Pressure from citizens has forced Abley to pull back on some of those route cuts. More of your routes will be on the chopping block next week. You can stop this today by calling your county supervisor at 414-278-4222. That's 414-278-4222. Tell your county supervisor to stop route cuts.
This message paid for by ATU Local 998.
You concerned about speaking up at work? Do you feel like you have no say in your day-to-day work routine? Join Teamsters Local 344. Call 414-258-4545. Get a seat at the table. Join your brothers and sisters in negotiating for better wages, hours, and working conditions, and be part of the most powerful union in North America. Teamsters Local 344 covers sales and service throughout Southeast Wisconsin and package and airlines statewide. Contact Teamsters Local 344 at 414-258-4545 or at local344.org.
More power, more fight, the most heart. Gingras, Thompson & Walks is more than a law firm. We're family. We believe in doing our best to help people in need and right the wrong that's occurred. For more than 35 years, we've helped thousands of clients across the state of Wisconsin get the justice they deserve. Our proven track record of success isn't based solely on our knowledge of the judicial system. Rather, we make it our priority to get to know our clients and their cases so we can best represent them. Gingras, Thompson & Walks. Find us online at gtwlawyers.com.
You're listening to the radio show your mother warned you about. Tom and Kreutz are the Devil's Advocates.
And we're back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Phone lines open at 844-967-2789.
Dominic, before we take the phone, I have to interrupt. Tara's in the studio with us, and if she doesn't stop taking her hands off me, you're going to have to call a cop.
You have to say no first, Lenny.
Oh! I got my good friend, crazy Lenny Mattioli, in studio with me. Lenny, I know you're something of a baseball fan. World Series wrapped up, but last Sunday night, the POTUS, Donald Trump, went to the game.
Yeah.
And got roundly booed. Boo
this man.
They put him on the scoreboard. First, they had a bunch of veterans, and the crowd uniformly cheering the veterans. And then they put up Donald Trump, and the crowd not uniformly, but a large segment,
50, 60,000
drowned
fans.
him out. 100 decibels of booing.
Really?
And then they chanted, "Lock him up." Want to get your opinion. Is that okay at a baseball diamond?
Actually, it's not, but that implies that he shouldn't, in his actions and things that he's done, shouldn't be booed, so to speak. I don't know, it smacks a little bit of mob violence or something. You can do a lot more good to resolve the problems Trump causes at the election booth and by talking to the actual issues and the things and the problems that are perpetuating themselves and right in front of us, like the environment and like the inability to find the worthwhile places to put those billions of dollars that get wasted. Remember, we talked last time I was on your show about somebody made $1.2 billion on a clearly insider stock trade. In which
Probably Donald Trump.
Probably, yes, who are, can't prove this, but it probably could be proven was involved. And, you know, we don't need booing. We've got facts. Let's just use them. But you know what?
All that's true, though, Len, but booing feels so fun. You know, booing the man feels like the right thing to do, Len.
Boo the pitcher that threw a beanball or something like that. That's more part of the
What about
game.
the guy that carried his bat to first base? Would you have booed that action? That's sort of showing up the pitcher. He deserved a beanball perhaps on his next day. AB.
That's just stupid. That's not a boo. Why would he carry his bat? Was he going to hit somebody with the baseball bat in front of the world? Why is he carrying his bat? Does he need a baseball bat to defend himself?
Tried to
It's
hand
just
it off
stupid.
to the first base coach, and the first base coach dropped it.
Oh, please. It's just silly.
Kids these days.
No, come on. You know what? I've told many people in self-defense, I've taken courses in self-defense, there are certain situations where I'd rather have a baseball bat than a weapon, and I don't even own a gun, so to speak, a gun. But you don't carry
Lenny, let me sell some e-bikes for you. Go see Lenny this weekend. Tell him the Devil's Advocate sent you.
E-bikes.
We need like 3 of you at minimum to buy an e-bike this weekend. If you don't do it, you'll never hear from Lenny again.
What's the phrase?
I'm not Crudy's daddy.
I'm not Crudy's daddy.
Thanks,
That's the
crazy Lenny.
password. Thanks,
You're not my
guys.
daddy, are you, Lenny?
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Listen to the Devil's Advocates live weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m.
Go back to where they came from, help those people come back and show us how to do it. That was the full quote.
They didn't come from anywhere. They were here, dude. Are you employed, Chris?
I am.
Do you have an HR department?
Yes, I do. I'm a union machinist.
Oh, do you work with minorities?
I do.
If you walked up to one of your coworkers who was a minority, you told them to go back to where they came from, would HR have a conversation with you about that, do you think?
It depends on the person, really. I mean, some people are...
If somebody complained to HR about what you said, do you think they would have a conversation with you about that? Okay.
Absolutely.
Well,
Oh,
but why?
absolutely.
Why would they pull you off of your job to discuss this with you? What do you think their beef would be?
Because they're trying to protect the corporation from lawsuits.
Lawsuit for what?
Discrimination, racism.
So if your coworkers, if you say it to your coworker, it could be described as discrimination or racism. But when the president says it to the world, it's not racist?
No.
Yikes.
You are listening to WRRD 1510 AM, Waukesha, Milwaukee. Always streaming at newstalk1510am.com.
Thinking of a new electric bike next year? Well, fall's the best time to buy. Over $400 off any electric bike at Crazy Lenny's e-bikes. Make a down payment on a fall sale price, but you don't have to pick up the e-bike until April. Free winter storage. The guarantee starts when you pick up your new e-bike next April. $1,700 e-bikes are $1,200. $1,200 e-bikes are $900. $1,100 e-bikes are $600 for a new e-bike. Fall is the time to get a new e-bike. Save $400. Pick it up in April at Crazy Lenny's.
Five Nines, your local single-source IT solutions provider. Specializing in cloud technology, consulting, servers, networks, and hosting. We manage your IT so you can focus on running your business. Enjoy technology. Enjoy 59s.com.
When you shop Goodwill, you don't just bring home a vintage dress or cat lamp. You bring home so much good to your community because everything you buy funds local job training and more. Goodwill, bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
My congressman, our good friend Mark Pocan, if Donald Trump's under attack, Mark, are you worried about his inspired followers rising up and voting him to re-election?
I am trying to approach this with blinders on when it comes to the political side of it. If he has violated the Constitution, it is our obligation to do an impeachment. And I think from what I've read, I feel that. I think when we get some witnesses in, we'll really have full clarity on that. But if it was just political reasons, some people say, well, then you're going to get, Mike Pence, is that good? And you can second guess every decision we ever make in politics if it's just about politics. In this case, I think that you rise to the Constitution. And if he has violated the Constitution, which I believe he has, there's obstruction on multiple counts, then we have no choice but to do our constitutional job and go after that.
Listen to the Devil's Advocates interviews at DomandCroot.com. Click on the podcast tab and select interviews. That's DomandCroot.com.
For WRRD and WTTN, I'm Stu Daniels with your headlines. Wisconsin's new superintendent of public instruction says the ongoing achievement gap between black students and white students is a crisis. Carolyn Stanford Taylor, the first African-American leader of the Department of Public Instruction, said in a statement, quote, "Closing these gaps is not only the right thing to do, it is imperative for our state," unquote. New national test scores released on Wednesday show that Wisconsin has the nation's largest racial achievement gap among students. The Packers play the Chargers out in Los Angeles in a late afternoon game on Sunday. And the Bucks are down in Orlando tonight to take on the Heat. Forecast for Milwaukee and Madison tonight, a chance of rain and snow with lows in the upper 20s. Tomorrow, mostly cloudy with highs in the mid-30s. You're listening to WRRD and WTTN.
I'm the king of rock, there is none higher. Sucker MCs should call me sire. To burn my kingdom, you must choose fire. I won't stop rocking till I retire. Now we rock the party and come correct.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. I want to thank our most recent guest, a fine one indeed, perhaps my father. I've never taken a DNA test with Lenny. About the approximate right age. He's a handsome man like myself.
Anything's possible. He's a little shorter than you, though, Crudy. I don't know. He's more likely my father than yours.
I have a more refined sense of humor than my buddy Lenny does.
Lenny's awesome. Thank you, Lenny, for coming in.
Well, one last thought. Go buy some bikes from Lenny, and if you have been considering a bike, go do it this weekend and make Lenny eat his words. And tell him you're there for the I'm Not Crudy's Daddy
sale.
I'm Not Crudy's
Daddy
sale. You get a special. If you say that, Lenny A will fall off his stool, and B, he'll give you a special deal. I'll make sure I will enforce upon him. He's not far from here, man. I can hit a 3-wood his way.
I'm Not Crudy's Daddy sale. Crazy Lenny's e-bikes. Odana Road.
Although crazy, there could be a little, familial relationship there. What are we talking about next, buddy?
Oh, after all that fine conversation, What do you want to get to? Beto is out. Do we got any Walker Bash to do? Any Wisconsin topics you want to get to? Here's one that I really like. Keystone Pipeline spills 350,000 gallons of oil in North Dakota. I mean, we are airing grievances. That's perhaps one that we should make sure everyone is aware of.
Well, it's more like 383,000 barrels, Don, but please continue.
Oh, damn. As Crudy said, from the Hill, Owen Daughtry, 383 gallons of crude.
Gallons?
Million gallons. I'm sorry. 383,000 gallons of crude. Impacting
That's
an estimated
not barrels, but that's still a hell of a lot of oil.
Half acre of wetland. The leak has been contained, according to Carl Rockerman, the director of the State Department of Environmental Quality Division Water Quality. It is one of the larger spills in the state, he told the New York Times. He added that there are no homes near the site of the spill, and the wetland that was impacted was not a source of drinking water. So
no big deal.
It's all good, everybody. Pipeline owner TC Energy shut down the pipeline after the leak was detected. Now, don't any of you people think about going over there and protesting the oil spill, because if if the Republicans in the state of Wisconsin have their way, and actually a few of those Democrats, hell, you could be charged with a felony. So there's my grievance.
Why would people ever want to protest a pipeline, Dom? It's such a good thing for the environment.
Well, I know, and I mean it wasn't used for drinking water. It's not near any homes. I mean it's collateral damage.
Aren't we all just collateral damage in some billionaire's world, Dom?
Basically, maybe.
You know what I wanted to get to, Dom? Elizabeth Warren. At the last presidential debate, she came off a little evasive. The question posed to her, what about Medicare for all, and will you have to raise middle-class taxes to pay for it? Well, Dominic, the Iowa frontrunner, according to Duelist polling, Elizabeth Warren, she's got a plan, and it does not, according to her plan, levy a higher tax on middle-class taxpayers. At thehill.com, Senator Elizabeth Warren, Democrat from Massachusetts, on Friday released a new plan laying out how she would pay for her Medicare for All proposal that would not directly raise taxes on the middle class, responding to pressure and criticism from other Democrats in the presidential race. The plan is to shift from Warren's progressive rival in the 2020 primary, Senator Bernie Sanders, who has said tax hikes on the middle class will be necessary to help pay for Medicare for all. Now, I would point out, Bernie also makes the argument that we're replacing one expense with another expense, and the new expense is less than the former expense.
We already essentially have a health care tax in the form of premiums and deductibles and money we pay out of pocket for the service of health care and pharmaceutical care, right? I mean, that's an expense out of pocket. If you take $1 out of one pocket, it's $1 out of one pocket for taxes. It's still $1 out of your pocket.
Well, Dom, I don't know how wonky most people are being, in this age of Donald Trump. It's really about defeating Donald Trump. See the prior support for Joe Biden. But here's what Elizabeth Warren had to say. And I think the fact that she has found a way to make her prior quote unquote evasive answer the right answer, I think, is perhaps a masterful stroke. Here's what she said. We don't need to raise taxes on the middle class by 1 penny to finance Medicare for all, Warren wrote in a Medium post published Friday. The senator instead recommended new taxes on the rich, corporations, and employers, as well as cuts to defense spending. Warren's plan, which would cover health care and long-term care for everyone living in the U.S. while eliminating private insurance, would cost an additional $20.5 trillion in new federal spending over 10 years. Now, to achieve that number, she also has to plan a big savings, but we'll get to that. This is a lower estimate than the $34 trillion in new federal spending the Urban Institute recently reported would be needed to fund a single-payer program. Now, I'd point out, we're already paying that much in healthcare costs currently. It's not like this is a new expense to the American people. Only everyone would be the beneficiary because everyone would have access to healthcare. And when I say access, I mean actual care, not just, access. Anyways, I read on.
It's like the fire department, but for people.
The Warrens' plan won't raise taxes on the middle class is significant. Other Democrats running for president who increasingly view Warren as the party's frontrunner have frequently tried to peg her down on the proposal's cost and implications for middle-class families. The proposal comes as polls show Warren in the driver's seat ahead of the Iowa caucuses as opponents try to sell the public on their own health care plans. Warren has said repeatedly that overall cost would decrease for the middle class under Medicare for All, but until now she has not commented on whether it would require tax increases. The challenge posed by the original Medicare for All proposal, authored by Sanders and supported by Warren, is that it does not detail how it would be paid for. This has also allowed opponents of Medicare for All to make up their own price tags and try to scare middle-class families about the prospect of tax increases, Warren wrote in the Medium Post. Warren and Sanders have both argued that Medicare for All will lead to lower healthcare spending overall, and Warren said that under the current system, individuals are expected to spend about $11 trillion on premiums, deductibles, co-pays, out-of-pocket costs, and that she'd reduce that amount to practically zero. She said that taxes don't need to be directly raised on the middle class in order to make up the difference and pay for the additional $20.5 trillion in federal spending she's proposing. To pay for the plan, Warren said she would redirect $6 trillion that state and local government currently spend on health care to help fund it. Warren aims to raise about $8.8 trillion through an employer Medicare contribution that would essentially redirect to the federal government what employers are currently paying to insurance companies for their workers' health care. And she said $1.4 trillion would be raised through existing taxes on an enormous amount of money that will now be returned to individuals' pockets for moving to a Medicare for All system with virtually no individual spending on health care. Warren also said that she'd raise about $2.3 trillion, boosting IRS enforcement of tax laws and strengthening tax reporting and withholding requirements. Dominic, the Massachusetts senator, is floating new taxes aimed at the financial sector, a tax on financial trades, which she said could raise about $800 billion over 10 years, and a fee on large banks that she said could raise about $100 billion over 10 years. Finally, Dom, at least as far as I'm going to read, Warren said she'd make tax changes for corporations that would raise about $2.9 trillion over a decade. These include requiring businesses to write off the cost of their investments over a longer period of time, no rapid depreciation in the future, Dom, a country-by-country minimum tax, a country-by-country minimum tax of 35% on U.S. corporations for earnings and taxing foreign firms based on their sales in the U.S. So what say you, Dominic, you libertarian fiscal conservative? Has she built a better mousetrap, a better Medicare for all?
Well, it's got to be funded. I don't know. I mean, do each one of those things raise the amount of money that she says they're going to? There's also apparently
she's got very specific cost structures.
Well, I get it, but I can do a spreadsheet too. I'm just saying that if you're going to rely on revenue because of a certain action like immigration, that you think you're going to raise a certain amount of money on
immigration.
What if that doesn't come to fruition?
Immigration, where did you get that from?
I don't have it in front of me. New York Times was talking about it as well today.
I'm not clear what part immigration plays in funding a Medicare for All plan. I'm not at all clear. I mean, I did look at her specific proposals line by line, dollar by dollar, and I would say whether or not her math is completely accurate or aspirational at this point, Dom, she does get to stake out a different position than Bernie Sanders. And I would say Bernie Sanders really was the good and beneficiary of the last presidential debate. And why I think he benefited was because she came off as a little evasive on the topic of paying for Medicare for All. Bernie, very straightforward. Yes, your taxes are going up. It's going to offset other fees you currently pay. Right? Bernie was straightforward. Elizabeth Warren had to reinvent how it is you go about presenting Medicare for All. And I think she comes off as the one with a more detailed, a better plan for how to get from here to there.
The plumb line from the Washington Post. Crudy, I knew I saw it somewhere. Craig Sargent, opinion writer, buried in Senator Elizabeth Warren's new Medicare for All plan is an intriguing tidbit. One of the pay-fors that the Massachusetts Democrat proposes would come from an increased revenues generated by legalizing undocumented immigrants and increasing legal immigration. In truth, this represents only a tiny aspect of her plan, but it's worth noting because it points to a much bigger topic, one that Democrats should be talking about in part to challenge Trump's toxic anti-immigrant rhetoric and agenda, the need for more immigrants to help pay for the welfare state of the future. So I'm not going to get into it entirely, Crudy, but there are I guess my point in bringing that up is when you do a proposal and you do a plan like this, when you have variables like that you can't control, if they don't come to fruition, what's the backstop? What's plan B to come up with that revenue?
Plan B? What the hell is Donald Trump's plan B, man?
Listen, you asked me a question. I'm not defending Trump. I'm pointing something out.
Attack line by line a singular
think that
point of a proposition?
I do think that the logic of having already expenses taken out of people's paychecks for healthcare, just because it's one expense and it called something different now and versus a tax later, those are still money out of pocket. For the corporations that already have some of these costs, of course, already in there to pay a tax instead of. And another thing I would add, and I don't know if this is in there, is the actual operational revenues saved by corporations that now just have to pay a tax and don't have to employ departments to administer healthcare plans.
Well, if they don't garner that savings, does the whole plan fall apart and you throw the baby out with the bathwater?
What, man? You asked me a question. I'm just pointing some things out. Hey, man, don't ask my opinion if you can't handle it, baby.
Well, if you think her plan is predicated on what? Immigrants paying for the rest of us? I don't think that's entirely, or
I didn't say it was predicated. It was specifically a small part, as I noted in the article.
All right, come back with us. We got one segment left to beat each other over the heads, and then go see if we can get Medicare for all with these new pre-existing conditions.
Tune in to Wisconsin's Political Talk on WRRD 1510 AM. Weekdays, hear the Earl Ingram Show from 6 to 9 a.m. Next, it's Stephanie Miller from 9 to 11. From 11 till 2, the Tom Hartman Program. At 2 o'clock, it's Matt Flynn Direct. From 3 to 6, the Devil's Advocates. And at 6, it's Busted Pencils, Brandy Grayson, and Maggie Dawn. Wisconsin's Political Talk. Listen online at newstalk1510am.com.
You concerned about speaking up at work? Do you feel like you have no say in your day-to-day work routine? Join Teamsters Local 344. Call 414-258-4545. Get a seat at the table. Join your brothers and sisters in negotiating for better wages, hours, and working conditions, and be part of the most powerful union in North America. Teamsters Local 344 covers sales and service throughout Southeast Wisconsin and package and airlines statewide. Contact Teamsters Local 344 at 414-258-4545 or at local344.org.
I don't see the support. I don't support it.
Wisconsin Senate Majority Leader Scott Fitzgerald doesn't see the support for legalized medicinal marijuana, even though the 2018 midterm referendum in 11 counties and the city of Waukesha passed by over 79%. Call Scott Fitzgerald at 608-266-5660. Tell him you support legalized medicinal marijuana.
No, I don't see it.
This message was paid for by the People for People Corporation. Donate online at p4ppc.org. P4ppc.org. This is Dom from the Devil's Advocates. In the 7 years that Crudy and I have been doing the show, we have never had a more engaged, dialed in, and motivated audience, and we love them for it. Now is the time for you to reach the greatest audience ever. Call now, advertise with the Devil's Advocates and Real Resistance Radio. Market your products or services, get your message out, join the resistance. Call us at 414-635-0872. That's 414-635-0872, or go to realresistanceradio.com.
The Devil's Advocates. They refuse to do math on the radio.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Last segment of the day. If you have any grievances, now is your last opportunity at 844-967-2789.
I got a new one. So, anyways, we do our math during the commercial breaks. And as you pointed out from the Greg Sargent piece in the Washington Post, as I quizzed you unmercifully, I think the point that Sargent's making is really that Democrats aren't talking enough about immigrants and the fact that we need to make legal immigration part of our humanity-led campaign for the future of our country. But I think I just don't want to mix metaphors or somehow confuse the audience into believing that this legalization of immigrants, as you pointed out, Dom, about $400 billion over a decade, that's about $40 billion per year, that Elizabeth Warren thinks would be created in new revenue by legalizing immigrants that are already here amongst us. And I would say, as you noted from Sargent's piece, that's really like 2% of the overall proposal. The greater point I think that Sargent makes is this country cannot survive without additional immigrants. And the current policies of the Trump administration is basically white, rich people only. And if you don't fit that category, you're not allowed here. You're not welcome here. Guy wants to change what the Statue of Liberty says. No, that's really for not your tired, huddled masses. That's for rich people with discernible skills that can stand on their own 2 feet, right? Cuccinelli said that. So I think the point is taken. I think certainly there should be conversations about immigrants. And when you talk about legalizing a certain population of our nation, people that in many cases are working yet not garnering the benefit of the taxes, A, they already pay, or B, would pay under this newest proposal, sure, that's a fair conversation. I just don't want to misconstrue that that's somehow, one of the pillars of her funding mechanism, because I went through them separately of a Greg Sargent piece, and I didn't see
Right, they didn't bring it up at 2%.
Big
I get your
numerical
point,
line.
but yes, fine,
It's not-
fair enough.
it's not a big
Let me
funding line
let me
item.
put this back on you now. Is the conversation over? She figured it out. We got the magic formula to fund Medicare for all through Elizabeth Warren's plan. Conversation closed.
Well, I think we've got an aspirational formula for how she would pay for it. She at least is showing the American people where she would hope to lead this country. And the current guy completely lacks for any direction plan. I mean, he makes platitudes. We're going to build a wall, and Mexico is going to pay for it. Well, Elizabeth Warren's got a comprehensive line item plan of what she intends to do and how she intends to pay for it. That is so different than the current guy. And of course, when you put the details on paper, you subject yourself to criticism or ridicule or whatever else, right? Someone's going to
You're running for president. You're talking about a huge chunk of our economy, and of course, people's lives and health. Of course, everything is up for criticism and review. That's just part of the job. And if you don't do it, you're going to get criticism for that. And of course, she did. Let me ask you this, and I haven't read it other than bits and parts, but how does it compare to Bernie Sanders? Has Bernie Sanders come out with his plan to pay, and how does this differ?
Well, I don't think Bernie Sanders goes through the same line items, and I would say many of the savings that Elizabeth Warren would hope to redeem, well, they would factor in somewhere in the national budget in a Bernie Sanders administration. Certainly he would propose to cut federal budgetary spending on, let's say, the military. Well, Bernie Sanders would also make a proposition as such. But what Bernie would not do is allocate that specifically to pay for Medicare for all. Bernie Sanders, I think, has been much more clear on the funding mechanism. We're already paying for it. Only we would do so in a more efficient delivery mechanism instead of us paying premiums and co-pays and this and that, and perhaps even being denied by our insurance carriers. At that time, Bernie Sanders says, hey, we're spending, $34 trillion? Do it my way and we'll spend $32 trillion. And yes, some of that will come from increases in middle-class taxes, because that's the most straightforward way to get from here to there. And I prefer Bernie's method because, as you were quick to criticize, Elizabeth Warren's got a lot of moving parts to pay for her plan. And if you indeed can redeem savings on all those line items that she itemizes, well, guess what? If you just had a more straightforward, if you just answered the question, which is, yes, taxes are going up on the middle class, then you wouldn't have to spend so much time explaining and line iteming and putting specificity to this plan, which is really a plan to avoid saying, yes, taxes go up on the middle class.
But they don't want to raise taxes on the middle class, and that was the issue specifically with...
She doesn't want to say that.
Well,
she
of course
doesn't want to
say
that.
Now, but do you think then that this, with all the moving parts, and there wasn't as much a criticism, Crudy, as it was an observation, hey, man, she put something down. That's more than most of these candidates have done, and certainly more detailed than any Republican has proposed. So,
well, her plan will gain more traction than anything Beto O'Rourke has to say here forward.
Yeah. Beto O'Rourke, he is out of the presidential run today. He dropped out. I think he scored. I was looking for the New York Times polling we talked about in Iowa, where Elizabeth Warren is leading. I think Beto scored about 1% in that poll.
Yeah, that's not going to get you any farther.
That's not going to get there.
You know, and as these candidates run out of cash, and I suspect there will be many more that start running out of cash in a very quick period of time.
Or at least want to hang on to what you got left for the next thing.
Joe Biden's going to have to get propped up by a super PAC because Joe Biden's burn rate is, I mean, Joe Biden could be out of cash before Iowa.
Okay, let's talk about that quickly.
Propped up by a super PAC.
And polls are polls, right? Got that. So, but right now we see Elizabeth Warren leading in Iowa. If that would be the case right now, let's just assume
Joe Biden in fourth in the newest polling.
And that's a tough one. Now, after Iowa comes what?
New Hampshire.
And right now,
Joe Biden is no better than third.
And I think Bernie was leading in that poll, the most recent one we talked about.
And then you got
right?
the Nevada caucus.
And where are we at? Who's leading
Currently, that's Bernie.
Bernie's up in Nevada. Okay.
Bernie's up in Nevada. And then you go to South Carolina. And that's going to have to be what? The blue wall? The African-American wall for Joe Biden? Because if he doesn't win South Carolina, he's done by South Carolina. By Wednesday night, he'd be out of the race if he does not have and score a convincing win in South Carolina. I would point out, no Democrat since Bill Clinton has won the presidency or the nomination without winning either Iowa or New Hampshire. And I think in all probability, Joe's going to be 0 for 2, probably 0 for 3 before he gets to South Carolina. And people are bandwagon jumpers, right? Everybody wants, I mean, how many national fans did you see come out of the woodworks? I'm thinking national fans. Really? You live in Wisconsin. What about the Brewers? Well, you know, I lived in D.C. for 2 weeks one year, so now I'm a Nationals fan, right?
I went on a field trip one time.
Everybody loves to be on the winning team. I mean, everybody wants to back a winner. So let's assume Warren wins Iowa, and maybe Bernie's close. And then Bernie wins New Hampshire, and maybe Warren's close. And then Bernie wins Nevada. Well, you know what? Where's the bandwagon for Joe Biden at that point? And I know Bill Clinton came out early on the night when the New Hampshire was coming back. And quite frankly, that year, I think Tom Harkin was running for president. Iowa was not contested. The home state boy was going to win Iowa. So effectively, Iowa was a throwaway for all the other candidates. And then Bill Clinton came running out, I'm the comeback kid. And sure enough, he was. But I don't think Joe Biden is Bill Clinton. And I don't think if Joe Biden goes 0 for 3 in the early caucus and primary states, I don't think a super PAC's going to matter one iota. I think he's done.
Oof. That's some tough words, Curdy.
Well, you know, I have predicted Elizabeth Warren would win the nomination and eventually the presidency. My only concern for her is she showed weakness in the last debate, and I think this new plan gives her cover. But ultimately, I've found new affection for Bernie Sanders. Because, you know, theoretically, Bernie could be my daddy. Go tell Liddy you want the I'm Not Crudy's Daddy bike deal this weekend. 3 or 4 of you at least, please. I do the advertising in the spring. For all our friends in Milwaukee listening on stream, give us a week and we'll talk about it again. Thank you, Liddy. Thank you all for listening. Stick around. Dawn of the Resistance with Maggie Dawn. Maximum Inc. Radio this weekend, 7 to 9 on Saturday night. Earl, Ken Harwood, lots of fine radio. Stick around. You don't want to miss a minute.
HU998 wants to remind you that last month it was revealed to county supervisors that millions of budgeted transit dollars were deposited into county benefits. A national economist found numerous interesting trails. In one trail, the wheel tax increase went to the transit budget. The transit budget ran millions under, and at the end of the year, nearly that same amount was added to county benefits. At the same time, County Executive Abley also cut a number of routes in his budget. While you stand in a cold corner longer or walk further in the cold because of route cuts, the county management seems to be more about their political comfort. Pressure from citizens has forced Abley to pull back on some of those route cuts. More of your routes will be on the chopping block next week. You can stop this today by calling your county supervisor at 414-278-4222. That's 414-278-4222. Tell your county supervisor to stop route cuts.
This message paid for by ATU Local 998.
You are listening to WRRD 1510 AM, Waukesha, Milwaukee. Always streaming at newstalk1510am.com.
Presidential dropout, public hearings pending. I'm Barbara Kusin.